Chapter 323. Appearance of Hao Zhong and the Soundless Instrument 1. Insolence, blatant insolence. How dare you injure me? How dare you do this to a saint of the sacred sect? The saint growled. With a deathly stare, he glared ahead at Wang Xian, who was leaving. The contempt and the look of disregard made Wang Xian appear all the more indifferent. Leave your name. In no time, I'll slaughter you with my own bare hands, the saint called out harshly as he watched Wang Xian from behind. Upon hearing the saint, Wang Xian stopped short and turned around to look at the young man. You've lost your chance, he mocked. In a fit of anger, the saint snapped in a grimace as his eyes filled with bloodthirst. He took a quick look at his arm and called out, I'll kill you soon enough. Wang Xian looked back at the saint, smiling. He beamed with a glimmer in his eyes before turning to leave. Saint, are you all right? A voice asked. Saint, let me have a look at your injuries. I have some elixir pills with me. Another called out in concern. The crowd of disciples had barely recovered from shock. To think that the saint had been injured by a nobody with one mere strike. Just how could this be? I'm all right, the saint brushed them aside. With a glum face, he took one look at the injuries on his shoulders. As he watched Wang Xian leave, a young man tried to appease the saint. Saint, had the lad not snuck an attack, and had you brought your sky devil zither along, you would have maimed such a lad easily, he flattered. Humph, the saint replied impassively. Displeased, he looked at Tang Yinxian and pressed her for an answer. Who is he? Which sect or clan is he from? Upon hearing the saint's words, Tang Yinxian furrowed her brows and shook her head. Saint, I have something to attend to. I'll return to the sect now, she replied before making a direct exit. Hold it right there, Tang Yinxian. The saint is asking you a question. A female disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect yelled at Tang Yinxian. Ignoring the call, Tang Yinxian excused herself again. Apologies, saint. I'm feeling unwell, so I'll head back to rest, she said before hastening her steps. Feeling helpless, she sighed softly as she rushed back to the sect. Well, well, this Tang Yinxian, the saint rebuked. As he watched Tang Yinxian disappear gradually, he headed straight for the exit with a steely expression. Saint, a few disciples called out with unease. Go, get me details of the lad's identity, the saint ordered one of them as he turned his head back. Yes, saint, the crowd of disciples replied hurriedly, shocked by the comment. The saint of a sacred sect is not someone to be trifled with. Offenders shall die. As Wang Xian entered the presidential suite, he was immediately welcomed by Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and 7 Dragonians. Young master, they greeted respectfully. Just place the information you've got over there. Wang Xian replied, acknowledging the gang with a wave. He picked up the documents and headed for the bedroom. Noted. Mo Qinglong and gang nodded before they headed outside. Meanwhile, a worn-out Tang Yinxian returned to her room, located atop the 9th summit of Ning City's 9 Peaks mountain. As she placed the zither on the desk, she looked to the side where 2 zither rested. One of them was covered in cracks and bore obvious signs of repair. But repaired zither could no longer be used. As for the other zither, it boasted an all-green body which exuded both extravagance and beauty. This was a zither gifted to her by her master. This green zither had been obtained by her master at an overly exorbitant price. According to her master, it was a level 6 zither. As with all things in life, even weapons are classified by levels, as they are graded similarly to humans. In fact, where grading is concerned, only the classification of spiritual grasses and elixir pills differ vastly from the others. Weapons are graded in ascending levels, and where a weapon has surpassed level 9, it would then be named a metamortal spiritual weapon, also known as an inborn spiritual weapon. Inborn spiritual weapons possess a spirituality of their own. When a weapon ascends to such a level, it gains unimaginable powers. Take the ancient sword of Zhan Lu, which Wang Xian now owned, for instance. It is no sword to be owned by mere mortals, given that it possesses energy of the gold summit. An average martial artist could even be killed by the sword simply by holding it. Similarly, an expert martial artist of level 8 or above could challenge someone at superseding levels, simply by wielding the sword. So much so that a level 9 martial artist could kill a half-step inborn with a Jean Lu sword in hand, which is what makes an inborn spiritual weapon so formidable. That said, inborn spiritual weapons were few and far between in the current world, as there were barely any blacksmiths left. Along with the art of equipment refining being long lost, all current renowned weapons were the ones passed down from ancient times. Thus, this level 6 green zither, gifted by her master, was incredibly rare. Tang Yinxian looked at the casing which held the zither from Wang Xian. Its appearance was very common, and it even bore a trademark. Ling Yin, Tang Yinxian chimed, giggling as she looked at the trademark brand. Ling Yin was currently one of the top zither brands. An exquisitely customized zither could cost tens of thousands, while the pricier ones could even fetch more than $1 million. Yet, in her eyes, these supposedly branded zither were no different from the ordinary ones. They could not compare to the green zither gifted to her by her master, which currently rested by her side. To think an invincible expert of his times is this insincere. How miserly! Tang Yinxian pouted, looking really adorable. It appeared she would only reveal this endearing side of her when she was alone. How ordinary it is! It's also an ordinary zither which Mother gifted me. She presumed. She had been prepared to reject this gift from the start, and hence gave little thought to Wang Xian's intentions. As she opened the casing, a simple yet classic-looking garnet zither emerged before her. Written on it were several traditional characters. On the center of the zither were 2 enlarged characters. Stupefied, Tang Yinxian stared at the 2 characters in a daze. Hao Zhong, she mumbled, repeating the name. Astounded, her face twitched in shock. She placed her hands on the zither immediately. Zing, ring, ring. Suddenly, a melodic note rang through her mind. She shuddered as though she had heard heavenly music. In an instant, she felt as though she was bursting with energy. Her vision became crystal clear, while the spiritual energy in her circled frantically. Hao Zhong! To think it's the zither of Hao Zhong! Tang Yinxian shook at the thought. She caressed the zither with trembling hands, sensing each chord as she went, her eyes filled with disbelief. Hao Zhong, the world's #1 zither, used by the top zither artist in history, Master Boya, subsequently passed on to Duke Huan of Qi, leader of the 5 hegemons during the spring and autumn period. Deafening as it plays, the zither chimes clear like a bell and trumpets like a blowing horn. Legend has it that the Duke played music on the zither during a war to boost morale, and because of that he emerged victorious and rose to become leader of the 5 hegemons. Tang Yinxian murmured incessantly with burning passion in her eyes. Hao Zhong, the legendary inborn spiritual weapon. To think that this, she uttered under her breath. Gradually, she began to recollect herself as she continued to caress the zither. Just then a thought came to her mind, and she flipped the zither over immediately. On the bottom hung an exquisite long scarlet sword. It was known as the enchantment sword. Tang Yinxian bit her lip, blushing as her eyes glinted. To think that a married man would do something like this. Chapter 324. Appearance of Hao Zhong and the soundless instrument, too. Enchantment sword, as its name suggested, was a sword of love. According to the latest historical records, Hao Zhong was given to a woman from her husband. Moreover, the husband had included the enchantment sword below the zither for his wife for protection. The enchantment sword was one of the famed swords in history. Although it wasn't as well known as the 10 famed swords, its strength was still well regarded and known by many. This was a sword for the ladies, and was feather-light. It was forged from frost metal and the water from a frosty pond. The elemental attribute of the sword was water. It was said that it was just a tinge inferior to an inborn spiritual weapon. As it was kept with the Haozhong zither, it was recorded as Haozhong enchantment sword by historians. Recalling the information regarding Haozhong and the enchantment sword, Tang Yinxian couldn't help but pout. She removed the enchantment sword from the bottom and unsheathed it. Shings! As the sword was unsheathed, the sound it made was pleasing to the ears, like flowing water. The entire sword was red other than the edge of the blade. It looked extremely stunning. The sword was light but exceptionally sharp. It was as though there was water flowing on it. Tang Yinxian waved it lightly, and the water energy raged. She wasn't well versed in swordsmanship and only knew a little about it. She looked at the bottom of Haozhong, just as she had expected. There was a sword manual in it. The sword manual recorded the enchantment swordplay. Haozhong is an inborn spiritual weapon, while the enchantment sword is a weapon exceptionally close to the level of an inborn spiritual weapon. Tang Yinxian held them dearly and was really satisfied with them. However, at the thought of the meaning behind these weapons, her expression changed. Since I have accepted them, just forget about the hidden significance behind them. She smiled gently and placed the Haozhong back into the cover carefully. Looking at the bright moon outside her room, her mood greatly improved. She walked back to her bed and started her rest. The next morning, the entire Nine Peaks Mountain was shrouded in a festive, light atmosphere. Beautiful music could be heard, and the surrounding birds were dancing in the skies. Other than the alluring music, calls of various birds formed a beautiful melody. Thousands and thousands of birds were flapping their wings and moving with the music. All the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect had to practice their musical instruments and cultivate in the morning. It was especially so for today, as the entire Nine Peaks Mountain was filled with all kinds of music. The selection of the saint had ended yesterday, and the selection of the saintess would start today. Tang Yinxian carried Haozhong and arrived at the backyard just like any other morning. She gently cleaned the place where she would be placing her zither. Placing her zither on the table, the surrounding music had not affected her emotions. Tang Yinxuan's eyes lit up as she looked at Haozhong before her. She placed her slender and fair fingers gently upon it. Ling! A musical note sounded. At this moment, this note resounded rapidly throughout a radius of 1,000 meters. What happened? Why did my zither go soundless? This is strange. What is happening? That musical note previously erased all other sounds. What is this about? What's the issue? Why is my error not making any sound? At this point, raucous discussion broke out around her. Exclamations and questions came from disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect in all directions. Tang Yinxian was taken aback. She stared with her eyes wide open at Haozhong, which was placed in front of her. With a bitter smile on her face, she kept it away and returned to her room. At this very moment, a woman on the main peak of the Nine Peaks Mountain opened her eyes abruptly. What's that sound? Could it be the Heavenly Sound zither? It doesn't sound like. The woman stood up, closed her eyes, and wanted to listen attentively. However, the same sound did not come again. In the end, she sat back down, feeling baffled. Fang Tianhua became the saint yesterday. I wonder who will become the saintess today. Do you even need to ask about this? It will definitely be Senior Sister who. Senior Sister who is now a half-step to Inborn Realm expert and possesses the level 7 ancient temple zither. Among the female disciples, she tops in terms of strength. It's still hard to tell. Tang Yinxian, Fang Jiuhua, and Ouyingyan have all reached the half-step to Inborn Realm. They are also strong contenders. In my opinion, Senior Sister, whose chances of winning are at least 80%. Strength is just one aspect, and you should consider their influence too. Many people are supporting Senior Sister, who now. Moreover, senior sister, who has 2 half-step to inborn realm subordinates. One of them even made it to the top 20 of the Outstanding Young Heroes chart. When the sun had risen, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect made their way towards the main training field. On their way there, the disciples were discussing fervently. However, they weren't too concerned about what had caused their musical instruments to go soundless. Tang Yinxian carried 2 zither as she made her way to the main training field. Along the way, the other disciples greeted her respectfully. There were also some disciples who simply gave her a cold glare. The main training field of the Heavenly Sound sect lay in the middle of the 9 Peaks Mountain. The Heavenly Sound sect didn't particularly have lots of disciples. For young men and women, there were only approximately 1,000 of them. They had exceptional demeanors and were either handsome or beautiful. In terms of looks, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect were all outstanding. Despite that, Tang Yinxian still shone brightly with her exceptional vibes and exquisite looks. The disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect arrived at the training field one after another. They stood in an orderly fashion around it while waiting patiently. The arrival of Tang Yinxian had drawn the attention of many people. Other than her, there were also a few other girls who were exceptionally attention-grabbing. Senior sister, who is here? At this moment, a scream came from the crowd. Everyone looked over and saw an alluring young lady with an enchanting figure walking towards the training field. She was dressed in black and looked just like a succubus in the night. Every action of hers drew the attention of all the men in the field. A large number of male disciples couldn't help but swallow their saliva. She was one of the few disciples that practiced the fei demonic note. 2 young men followed behind the young lady proudly. Despite being surrounded by outstanding disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect, they were still carrying a slight sense of superiority. Take a look. Senior sister, who didn't bring her ancient temple zither along, but another zither instead. That's true. It looks a little ordinary. However, with senior sister whose strength, others wouldn't be a match for her even if she used an ordinary zither. The saint is here. At this moment, the saint, who was dressed in elegant, Heavenly Sound sect's traditional costume, walked out proudly. Over a dozen disciples followed behind him deferentially. The saint's face looked devoid of expressions and seemed exceptionally cold, callous, but exceptional. Saint! The surrounding crowd greeted the saint respectfully. The saint nodded his head faintly, walked to a seat below the stage, and sat down. This was a seat reserved for the higher management of the Heavenly Sound sect, and the saint naturally was qualified to have a seat too. Soon the elders, vice sect leader and sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect arrived at the training field. Chapter 325 Appearance of Hao Zhong and the Soundless Instrument 3. Greetings, sect leader! The disciples greeted as they bowed to an elder who was gradually making his way to the central seat. As he lifted an arm, the leader of the Heavenly Sound sect swept his glance across everyone present and began to speak. Meanwhile, 10 masked men from the abyss emerged in a secluded corner just outside of the 9 Peaks Mountain. These 10 men were none other than Wang Xian and his gang. The information which Mo Yuan and the rest had obtained did not seem out of the ordinary. In addition, as a sacred sect, the Heavenly Sound sect had managed to cover their tracks well enough. Hence, the group could only sneak their way in by means of their incredible abilities and combat powers. The Heavenly Sound sect is unlike the Flame Palace. As a long-established sacred sect, their defense is no doubt more complicated than one can imagine, Wang Xian explained. After which, Wang Xian and gang peered at the 9 gigantic summits with heavy looks on their faces. Yet, other than its impressive heights and majestic beauty, one could barely detect any sense of danger from the 9 summits. They seemed to be nothing more than 9 ordinary mountains. Yet, it was the seeming mediocrity of the mountains which cautioned the group. After all, the Heavenly Sound sect was not the Flame Palace, hence its defense was anything but simple. Wang Xian gazed at the 9 typical mountains ahead as he narrowed his eyes. In a quick movement, he changed his position and hopped onto a tree along the fringes of the mountain. Tweet, tweet. Just then came a chirp from a tree branch beside Wang Xian. It was a bird, staring intently at Wang Xian as it called out. Soon after, the little bird flew towards the 9 Peaks mountain and within its vicinity. Huh. Wang Xian frowned in confusion. With quick reflexes, the power of the divine dragon oozed out of him and overshadowed the surroundings. Tweet, tweet. The little bird flapped its wings as hard as it could, before it flopped onto the ground. So that's how they work. Wang Xian exclaimed in realization. With a grin, he continued, no doubt a sacred clan. Even the mode of defense is beyond expectations. Wang Xian observed his surroundings and noticed an overwhelming number of nests. These bird nests came in all sorts and had settled on the branches of trees all over 9 Peaks Mountain. He even briefly spotted a nest which spanned about 6 to 7 meters across, located thousands of meters away. With such a gigantic nest, one can easily imagine the size of the bird settling in it. It must be a flying bird of the inborn level. The Heavenly Sound sect has resorted to using flying birds as implicit sentinels, numbering up to the tens of thousands, perhaps even the millions. Seems like there's no way of hiding any entry into the sect grounds, Wang Xian assessed. He was mildly impressed by the sect, which no doubt deserved its sacred status. By using millions of birds as surveillance, even a mosquito flying in would be clear for all to see. That said, these birds can't be that intelligent. They also possess obvious shortcomings. Wang Xian exclaimed with a faint smile, while Emo Qinglong and the rest scurried over. Let's go, Wang Xian directed. But as he was about to make a move, a bunch of tree branches clung onto Wang Xian and gang, twining them in like saplings. In one leap, he sprung forward. The birds around looked over in curiosity, but they soon became indifferent once again and continued to chirp incessantly while resting on the branches. They were, after all, ordinary birds with low intelligence, to the extent that some of them had no idea as to why these few saplings could actually move. The 10 men shot through the 9 Peaks mountain at lightning speed, and in no time arrived at the peak of one of the mountains. Over there! Wang Xian pointed as he narrowed his focus. In a flash, he landed mid-mountain on one of the nearest summits and stared coldly at the training field. Meanwhile, at the training field, a girl dressed in all black was suspended in midair with a black devil zither. Across from her stood another girl with a refined and graceful face. Panicking, while cold sweat trickled down her forehead, the young maiden clung onto her pipa as she battled the girl dressed in black. Standing beside Wang Xian, Emo Qinglong looked at the training field where Hu Qingqing was. That's the girl, Hu Qingqing. Based on the most confidential information from the Dark Conjurers, she's the one who issued the assassination orders. Emo Qinglong pointed out coldly. Not only did she order to have Tang Yinxian killed, she's also involved in 2 other missions, alongside that young man standing at the fringe. The other 2 assassinations were carried out successfully, he added. Wang Xian surveyed the girl in black, who boasted a charming face and a glamorous figure. How unscrupulous, resorting to killing a fellow sect member for the saintess position. Vile is a woman's heart, more poisonous than a viper's bite or a hornet's sting, Wang Xian said coldly as he observed. Thereafter, he swept his gaze across and counted silently. There are a total of 7 inborn experts, with more absent. They've either hidden themselves within the 9 Peaks mountain or gone traveling. Wang Xian contemplated in silence. Just 7 inborn experts alone was a handful. Moreover, members of the Heavenly Sound sect were known for their incredible combat powers and powerful attacks. However, Wang Xian and gang had not come to annihilate the Heavenly Sound sect. Rather, they were just here to kill Hu Qingqing. In addition, they need not clash with the sect. Young master, should we just charge over and slaughter her right away? Mo Qinglong asked as he stood beside Wang Xian. Kill! Wang Xian ordered. He had just uttered the word when he looked below and froze in his tracks. Hold on, he shouted. Yep. Mo Qinglong and the rest nodded in response and hid away quietly. Senior sister, who's too powerful. She's holding the legendary copperhead viper zither in her hands. That's a level 9 zither. Goodness, where did she get that from? An audience member gasped from amidst the crowd. A level 9 zither plus senior whose prowess as a half-step inborn, in addition to the unique art of cultivation of our heavenly sound sect. Senior who's almost unrivaled amongst the half-step inborns, another added. Seems like it's more or less decided that senior who will become the saintess. She's too powerful. To think that senior sister Fang, Zhouhua's, totally defenseless against her. One more chipped in. It feels like senior whose prowess is about to overpower the saints, a last commented. And there was Hu Qingqing, standing on the stage. With a charming smile, she fought on without a care in the world. Around the training field, the crowd of disciples watched on in shock and admiration all at once. The senior management of the Heavenly Sound Sect also gazed at Hu Qingqing, pleased with her performance. The prowess she displayed was simply impressive. The Copperhead Viper Zithers, a level 9 zither. It's enough to qualify as the third most powerful zither within our Heavenly Sound Sect. To think that Qingqing managed to obtain it, a senior praised. I'm taken by surprise, too. The Copper Viper Zither, along with Qingqing's Fei demonic note. She'll be unrivaled in the world of inborns. Another commented, Congratulations, Vice Sect Leader. You found a successor. A third cheered. On the stage, several elders chatted in whispers to the Vice Sect Leader. Seated in the middle, the Vice Sect Leader responded with a hearty laugh. His granddaughter would soon ascend to become the saintess. On the training field, Hu Qingqing eyed Tang Yinxian coldly. A look of disdain swept across the former's eye as she glanced at the latter's green zither. Tang Yinxian just conceded defeat. You're no match for me, nor are you qualified to exchange blows with me. Hu Qingqing gloated. Tang Yinxian had been in another battle earlier, where she had defeated Ouyangyan using her green zither, and although her skills were up to par, it had taken her a long time before she emerged victorious in the battle. This was a huge contrast to Hu Qingqing's easy win. Let's have a fair competition, where both of us will use an ordinary zither. Tang Yinxian suggested to Hu Qingqing in a composed manner. Haha, fair competition, using an ordinary zither. Tang Yinxian, are you kidding me? Hu Qingqing laughed. Chapter 326. If the abyss wants you dead, you definitely will be one. A peal of hysterical laughter broke out from Hu Qingqing. Although her laughter was exaggerated, her alluring voice with her trembling, enchanting figure made it hard for one to find it annoying. Instead, seductive vibes came from her. Hu Qingqing laughed loudly before looking to Tang Yinxian again and saying, Tang Yinxian, you must be acting naive. Strength includes weapons, cultivation arts, and cultivation realm. You want a fair battle? Hee hee, what a joke. As she completed her words, she played her copperhead viper zither lightly. Instantly, several demonic snakes appeared before it. I have gone through great lengths to get this copperhead viper zither. You want me to compete fairly with you without it? Hee hee. Ridicule sounded, and the surrounding people looked at Tang Yinxian with doubts. Cough, cough. Tang Yinxian is really something to raise a request like this. She's really shameless. Haha, that's right. This is the most interesting request I have heard. A fair battle, in her view, is to restrict her opponent from bringing out a powerful weapon? I'm really impressed. The thickness of Tang Yinchuan's skin is something we couldn't compare with. She's simply shameless. I'm speechless. To obtain the position of the saintess, she actually raised such a hilarious condition. This Tang Yinxian must be crazy. She couldn't make it. I have long heard that Tang Yinxian rarely interacts with others. It will seem like she's most likely an idiot to raise such a request. Around the training field, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect didn't attempt to hide their ridicule after hearing Tang Yinxuan's request. Based on the current situation, senior sister who would be certain to inherit the position of saintess. Therefore, the surrounding disciples weren't wary of Tang Yinxian at all. Furthermore, they might be able to get on the good books of senior sister, who by doing so, haha, Tang Yinxian, you are really interesting. Weapons are naturally a part of one's strength. You want a fair battle? You are really hilarious. Read more chapter on VIP novel. Come. At this moment, the saint who was seated commented. He looked mockingly at Tang Yinxian and continued. You don't have a good zither, and so you want to restrict others from using one. TSK. This thought is shameless. That's right. What a naive thought. Senior sister, who has a level 9 unique zither, and yet you want her to compete with you on an ordinary zither? In a life and death battle, will one put aside such a unique zither and compete with you on an ordinary zither? A young man standing beside the saint seconded and piled on the ridicules. The saint's expression turned callous. He mumbled softly, If I lend you my level 7 Sky Devil zither, you might still have a slimmer of hope. If you use that level 6 zither, your chances of becoming the saintess are 0. Oh, Tang Yinxian, you really don't know what's best for you. When I get the information on the brat that gave you the zither, I'll let him experience pain worse than death. The selection of the saintess is to show the wisdom, strength, guts, and means of the future saintess. You can keep such a laughable request to yourself. The vice sect leader seated on the stage looked proudly at her own granddaughter before glancing coldly at Tang Yinxian. If you know what's best for you, admit your defeat immediately. If you continue, I'll defeat you. You aren't qualified to compete for the position of saintess with me, Hu Qingqing said to Tang Yinxian with contempt. When Tang Yinxian heard the ridicules from the surrounding disciples, she was taken aback. A cold light flashed in her eyes. In that case, I would like to seek guidance about your strength. Just as she finished her words, she placed her green zither aside. Carrying the other zither, she jumped and landed in the middle of the training field. She stood in the middle of the training field, tapped her arms lightly, and the zither box behind her appeared in front of her. What? Look at the logo on the zither box. Isn't that just an ordinary brand available everywhere? It is. Could it be that Tang Yinxian has given up on using the level 6 green zither and is choosing to use an ordinary zither instead? She's probably worried that the copperhead viper zither will destroy her level 6 green zither. After all, that was the best zither Tang Yinxian could come up with. That's highly likely. When the surrounding crowd saw the logo and brand on Tang Yinxuan's zither box, they started looking at her with mocking eyes, insulting her. Hee, what a waste of my time. Hu Qingqing looked at the zither box in front of Tang Yinxian. Coldness gleamed in her eyes as she said nonchalantly, Within 5 moves, I will destroy your zither. I hope so. Tang Yinxian was nonchalant about the ridicules from the crowd and Hu Qingqing. She tapped the box lightly and sent it flying down. Please enlighten me. When Hao Zhong appeared before Tang Yinxian, her entire demeanor underwent huge changes. Cold, prideful with a tinge of holiness. She placed her slender fingers on Hao Zhong. The zither her mother had given her was where she deposited her longing for her mother. As for this dull red Hao Zhong, it was the zither she really liked. I'll let you witness the might of this legendary zither and hand you a convincing defeat. Hu Qingqing's expression changed as she appeared to have become one with the copperhead viper zither. On her arms, music notes coalesced from the demonic aura that was circulating and flowing constantly. How many strikes do you think senior sister who will need to defeat Tang Yinxian? Within 10 strikes, although Tang Yinxian also possesses half-step to inborn realm strength. The might of the legendary zither isn't something an ordinary zither could possibly match. Haha, my guess is within 5 strikes. Didn't senior sister, who say she would at most take 5 strikes? Seeing that the battle was about to start soon, the surrounding crowd was thrilled. The saint looked at the middle of the training field and Tang Yinxian emotionlessly, using an ordinary zither from an unknown and insignificant character against Hu Qingqing with a legendary zither. She must be asking to be shamed. SSS, SSS, SSS. At this moment, Hu Qingqing started playing. Her 5 fingers appeared to have become demonic claws as they moved rapidly on the copperhead viper zither. At that instant, a venomous snake made of eerie and cold energies swept towards Tang Yinxian rapidly from the copperhead viper zither. As Hu Qingqing moved her fingers even more quickly, thousands of venomous snakes appeared. They emitted horrifying aura and attacked forward in a wave. Senior sister, whose attacks are too strong, Tang Yinxian is likely going to be defeated by this strike. When the surrounding disciples saw what happened, they couldn't help but gasp in awe. Tang Yinxian wasn't flustered at all despite facing a large wave of venomous snakes. She placed her hands on Hao Zhong. Just as the venomous snakes were about to hit her, she played Hao Zhong lightly. Ling. At this instant, the surrounding crowd felt as though a downpour had fallen on them. Sounds of rain resounded in their minds. That wave of demonic snakes was flushed towards the floor and dissipated as though it was made of ink. Chapter 327. If the abyss wants you dead, you definitely will be, too. Ding cling. The zither began to play, where the notes earlier were just the opening of a tune. Yet, when the music resumed, the crowd realized that the rain they were surrounded by had begun to trickle like a gentle river flowing. A mystifying image appeared in everybody's minds. Just then, Hu Qingqing stood across from the crowd with her eyes wide. Her facial expression changed drastically as she watched the sight before her in utter disbelief. Her body began to tremble as her face grew dark and gnarly. Her demon claws frantically strummed chords on her copper viper zither, and bouts of demonic aura slithered on the instrument. Hurriedly, the aura gathered and transformed into a demonic snake. Yet Hu Qingqing was appalled to discover that her recital using the copperhead viper zither had produced not a single sound, as though the flowing waters were the only existence around right there and then. Her face showed an unwillingness to concede defeat. Demonic aura then oozed out from her, forming numerous demonic snakes on the copperhead viper zither. Ah! Hu Qingqing snarled while she arched her head skywards and puffed out demonic breaths. The demonic breaths, too, transformed into snakes, and within a short 2 minutes, more than 1,000 of them had formed. The demonic snakes exuded a chilling and steely demeanor and began to attack in Tang Yinxuan's direction. Just then, the streams of flowing water glowed in sapphire and surged straight ahead for the snakes. Once again, the demonic snakes were rendered defenseless. They resembled ink paintings which were watered down and swept clean, as though they had never existed. What's the situation? How did I get immersed in another world? Hu Qingqing shrieked in surprise. Soon after, the crowd of disciples from the Heavenly Sound sect recovered as though they had just regained consciousness. They gazed towards the arena, looking somewhat lost. It's the realm of music. Goodness! To think we've been dragged into a mirage of music! One exclaimed. How is this possible? This can only be achieved if one is an inborn expert of the ancestral clan. Otherwise, who's able to? A second doubted. This sound, goodness, to think senior sister, who's been totally suppressed, the third gasped. It was then that everyone focused their attention on the ongoing battle in the training field. They could see Hu Qingqing strumming away at the zither like a prancing maniac, and yet they could not hear the slightest sound. On the contrary, Tang Yinxian rested her fingers on her zither with a look of tranquility while standing across from Hu Qingqing. In a state of serenity, she started playing, and streaks of water flowed gently down the instrument. The snakes released by Hu Qingqing were wiped out by these gentle flows. The crowd also discovered in shock that the training field had been unknowingly submerged in blue waters. The streaks of sapphire flowed like a stream, meandering its way over. It moved over to Hu Qingqing and began to circle, as though to envelope her. What's this situation? Why can't I hear Senior Hu's melody? There's only the sound of flowing water I hear. What's going on? A voice questioned. Suppression. It's the legendary absolute suppression. The copperhead viper zither's been absolutely suppressed, to the point where its melody has been completely overpowered by that of another zither's. Another explained in astonishment. Suppression? How's this possible? The copperhead viper's regarded as a legendary level 9 zither. Another argued. A look of disbelief swept over the crowd of disciples. To think that a level 9 zither was unable to produce any notes. This inborn spiritual weapon. To think it's an inborn spiritual weapon. A voice blurted out. Meanwhile, on stage, the senior management of the Heavenly Sound sect was startled. Even the sect leader stood up, flabbergasted, as they all turned their eyes to the zither alongside Tang Yinxian. What? One gulped. How's this possible? Another gasped in disbelief. A zither that's of the inborn spiritual weapon level. How's this possible? Our entire Heavenly Sound sect has only got one zither of the inborn level. The Heavenly Sound zither. To think Tang Yinxian has got one too. The third uttered. If it isn't a zither that's classified as an inborn spiritual weapon, how could it have suppressed the copperhead viper zither like this? The disciples exclaimed at the top of their lungs. Overwhelmed by shock, they stared at the zither in Tang Yinxuan's hands with glistening eyes. That's the zither of Haozhong, one of them yelled. To which Tang Yinxian began playing once again. She strummed her fingers against the strings gently. In an instant, the surrounding waters flowed over in Hu Qingqing's direction, ready to strike. A zither that's classified as an inborn spiritual weapon. An inborn level zither. One shouted. Hu Qingqing's face soured when she heard Tang Yinxuan's melody. She cringed upon seeing that the water flow was coming at her and, with a quick shift, darted for cover. It was then that she looked down at her legs in shock. She was horrified to discover that, unbeknownst to her, her legs had been entwined by the water flow. As though caught in a swamp, she was unable to free herself from the entanglement of the water, no matter how hard she resisted. Such powerful binding force. Senior, who's losing? She's actually losing. Someone choked. It's only been under a minute, and Senior, who's about to be defeated? The second voiced in shock. Haozhong. Isn't that the zither of Haozhong, the number 1 zither amongst the legendary top 10? The third exclaimed. To think it's the Haozhong, the one regarded as the most powerful of all zither. Its ranking is even above the Heavenly Sound zither. Another added. Haozhong. To think it's the zither of Haozhong. The last choked. Upon hearing her words and seeing for themselves the attack which Tang Yinxian launched, the crowd was overwhelmed by shock. On stage, the senior management from the Heavenly Sound sect eyed the zither intently while it lay in front of Tang Yinxian. Haozhong. To think it's the Haozhong, the leading zither of all, they muttered. A horrid look was plastered across the vice sect leader's face, while his heart ached like it had been stabbed and was dripping blood, as he watched his granddaughter cocooned in the streaks of water. You've been defeated, Tang Yinxian announced before she stopped strumming with her fingers, to which the sound of flowing water disappeared. The crowd turned their heads immediately and saw that Hu Qingqing had been wrapped up tightly by the streaks. And even though Hu Qingqing struggled till her face turned crimson, the wrap remained entirely unaffected. such as the horror of the Haozhong, along with its prowess. The crowd watched dumbfoundedly as the scene unfolded before them. Hu Qingqing had been defeated. Furthermore, the defeat had struck upon her so easily and thoroughly. It was as though Tang Yinxian had barely used any of her combat powers and delivered a sweeping attack with such ease, like an adult sparring against a child. Yet everyone was well aware that Tang Yinxian owed her prowess and dominance to the formidable zither of Haozhong, an inborn spiritual weapon. At the same moment, the crowd recalled the request made by Tang Yinxian prior to the start of the competition, whereby they would compete fairly using only ordinary zither. Back then, everyone had mocked Tang Yinxian for having lost her senses. They also ridiculed her for being thick-skinned by asking her competitor to use an ordinary zither instead of a formidable one, simply because she had none herself. It appeared now that the truth was, in fact, the complete opposite. She had in her hands an inborn level zither, and had been out to compete fairly with Hu Qingqing after all. At the thought, the faces in the crowd sizzled in red. They had gauged the kindness and nobility of others using their own mean measures. How could this be? How could that chap, with nothing to his name, have gifted Tang Yinxian with an inborn level zither? This can't be. It's impossible, the saint uttered as though in a daze. As he did, he focused on the zither that rested in front of Tang Yinxian, remaining seated right behind. Chapter 328. Killing Openly. I admit defeat. On the training field, Hu Qingqing mumbled out 3 words bitterly. Everyone around could hear these words clearly. As she admitted her defeat, the water flow around her dissipated completely. The surrounding disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect were shocked as they witnessed what had happened. Similarly, members of the higher management of the Heavenly Sound sect were dumbfounded. They looked intensely at the Haozhong zither in Tang Yinchuan's hands and took a deep breath. Tang Yinxian wins and will succeed as the saintess through her own strength. If anyone isn't satisfied, you may step forward now. The sect leader looked across the crowd, and her attention eventually fell on Tang Yinxian and the powerful zither. The surrounding disciples had all quieted down. No one was speaking at this moment. The qualities and strength Tang Yinxian had demonstrated had made these disciples speechless. In fact, she had won many over. At this very moment, the surrounding disciples felt more embarrassment. Recalling the ridicule and mockeries that they made about her previously, they felt flushed. There's no way they could still step forward to object to the outcome. Puff! Hu Qingqing took a deep breath bitterly. I'm not convinced. The selection of the saintess also involves influence and respect from others on top of one's strength. Just as she spoke, the 2 young men who had been standing beside her previously moved and came to Hu Qingqing. A strong aura emanated from them. Hu Qingqing looked at the 2 young men behind her and revealed a faint smile. While I was cultivating diligently for the last 2 years, these 2 half-step to inborn realm experts have followed me. Moreover, they have established a second-class force. Currently, I can mobilize. As Hu Qingqing spoke, she seemed to have regained her confidence of before her defeat. She lifted her chin up and spoke loudly to the crowd. Voila! However, another voice sounded from above when she was still speaking. All the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect were taken aback and lifted their heads in shock. Hu Qingqing was caught by surprise too as she turned towards the source of that voice. The higher management of the Heavenly Sound sect was surprised and looked coldly towards the sky. A book flew down from the sky and towards the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect. At the same time, 10 men in black uniforms and the abyss masks leapt down from the mountain peak. When the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect saw the abyss masks, they were stunned. These masks, they are from the abyss. They are assassins from the abyss. At that instant, the same name flashed across the mind of the disciples. Some even exclaimed out loud. Dressed in black and wearing abyss masks, they are assassins from the abyss. All the disciples were shocked. The Abyss was the most horrifying assassination group, currently. After annihilating the Dark Conjurers, they were widely regarded by the underworld as being closest to a sacred sect. In fact, many regarded them as a horrifying organization that possessed equivalent strength to a sacred sect. Why would the people from the Abyss appear in the Heavenly Sound sect? All the disciples were alerted. They held their weapons tightly in their hands and observed the 10 assassins that had landed in the training field attentively. Rumble. At this moment, all the members of the higher management of the Heavenly Sound sect, who were seated at the elevated stage, stood up. Among them, there were 7 inborn experts. They immediately released horrifying aura and glowered at the 10 assassins from the Abyss. Hu Qingqing felt suffocated as she looked in horror at the 10 assassins from the Abyss that were standing around her. She didn't dare to say a word at this moment. The 2 young men standing beside her were petrified. They no longer had the arrogant vibes from before and were on alert. Pa! The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect caught the book that was thrown towards him and glanced at Wang Xian and his group. He squinted his eyes and coldness gleamed in them. "Assassins from the Abyss, what are you guys here for?" asked the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect coldly. "Obviously to kill someone." Wang Xian looked at the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect and didn't attempt to hide his intention at all. "Presumptuous! You dare to barge into the sacred grounds of the Heavenly Sound sect to kill? The Abyss is really brazen." When an elder heard Wang Xian's brazen claims, he picked up the long flute weapon coldly and glowered at Wang Xian and the group. Murderous intent gleamed in his eyes. How arrogant and brazen. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect turned gloomy. He held the book and asked coldly, "What is this?" "Take a look and you will know the person we are killing," replied Wang Xian emotionlessly. When his voice came through the mask, it became mechanical and cold. This made the surrounding disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect anxious. 10 days ago, 2 of our disciples accepted a mission and were assassinated by the Dark Conjurers. The Dark Conjurers were naturally acting according to the orders of their employer. Therefore, we, the Abyss, have annihilated the Dark Conjurers and found the mastermind. Now we are here to kill her. Wang Xian stared right at the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect and spoke emotionlessly. However, his response made the surrounding disciples gasp. Finally, they understood why the Abyss had annihilated the Dark Conjurers. It was to take revenge against the Dark Conjurers for killing 2 of their disciples. To find the mastermind, they had annihilated the Dark Conjurers. Domineering, horrifying, and unable to assess with common sense. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect could feel his eyebrow twitch. Clearly, he found this answer too shocking and chilling. The Abyss was too domineering and brazen. The remaining inborn experts of the Heavenly Sound sect had all picked up their musical instruments and placed them in front of them. They were all prepared to engage in battle with the imperious Abyss instantly if required. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect looked at the book in his hands. After going through the information in it, his face sank gradually. The information in the book was printed out. There wasn't any concrete evidence. "This couldn't be considered as evidence and can't prove anything," replied the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect after looking through the information. "Our Abyss isn't interested in falsifying evidence. We are just letting you take a look. We are still going to kill the mastermind," Wang Xian remarked coldly before turning to Hu Qingqing. Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and the Dragonians also turned to Hu Qingqing. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. "You deserve death for engaging the Dark Conjurers to kill 2 of our disciples." Wang Xian stared at Hu Qingqing and remarked coldly. Just as he finished his words, Mo Yuan struck. Overwhelming killing intent surrounded him. It was so dense that it appeared to have materialized. Turning his 5 fingers into claws, he struck towards Hu Qingqing. At this moment, Hu Qingqing's face was as white as a sheet. Cold sweat covered her forehead and horror filled her eyes. She no longer had the same flirtatious looks, arrogance, and confidence as before. When she saw the approaching Mo Yuan, she screamed in horror. "No! Why are you guys killing me? How dare you kill my granddaughter? The abyss must be courting death." Murderous intent gleamed in the eyes of the vice sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect. Moving his fingers across the zither, demonic aura turned into sharp edges and attacked towards Mo Yuan. Rumble. At this moment, Wang Xian waved his arm. A fireball flew towards the sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect and exploded. Ka ka ka. The zither broke after a single strike. Chapter 329. Indomitably haughty. No. Ah. Save me, Grandpa. A scream shrieked from the training field of Heavenly Sound sect. Along with the blood-curdling scream came an explosive blast. The zither of the vice sect leader had been destroyed with a single palm strike. When the crowd saw what had happened, they gasped and cringed in fear. The faces of the 6 inborn experts fumed with rage when they saw the abyss assassins approaching. "Courting doom," one of them hollered. Zing, zing, zing. As melodies began to play, countless wind blades, water droplets, demonic snakes, and golden needles were fired out from the musical instrument. Howl! Right then, a growl from the divine dragon came blasting through the air, following which an inferno divine dragon situated itself in front of the 6 inborn experts, blocking them. Flames torching like molten lava came spewing out of the inferno divine dragon, which put a direct stop to all the attacks. In the same moment, Hu Qingqing gazed ahead at Mo Yuan in utter despair. "Ah!" she cried while taking steps back, while the 2 half-step inborns beside Hu Qingqing broke out in a cold sweat. Neither of the young men dared to take a step forward. "Die!" Mo Yuan roared. Without the slightest hesitation, his fingers transformed into claws of the devil dragon as he struck at Hu Qingqing in a bid to attack. Ak, ak, ak. As Hu Qingqing landed on the ground, she coughed with a weak voice void of hope while she stared, eyes wide in terror. Equals, even on the brink of death. She didn't have the slightest clue as to who from the abyss she had killed, and why they got rid of her so menacingly. She had been radiating with glamour on the stage of the training field just a while ago, with high hopes of vying for the position of saintess. And yet, the same Hu Qingqing now lay motionless and lifeless on cold ground. "Abyss, you're goners. I'll get rid of you all." The vice sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect roared. As he burst with fury, bouts of demonic aura gushed from the training field and shot skyward. Clang, clang, clang. Just then, a frantic melody started to play, and it boomed throughout the 9 Peaks mountain. It had come from the musical instrument held by the leader of Heavenly Sound sect. Tweet, 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 tweet. Upon 2 chirps, 2 birds swooped over from individual mountain peaks, surging as quick as fighter planes as they flapped their gigantic wings. "Trespassers in the Heavenly Sound sect shall die," a voice hollered as numerous shadows came darting out of the 9 Peaks mountain. Upon emerging, they flew over short distances. It was 7 elders who had flown out, each gripping onto a musical instrument and exuding a terrifying aura as they did. Especially so for the elderly lady who emerged atop the most central peak, who displayed an air of dignity with a sparkling zither in her arms. Leaving their mountain peaks, the experts landed on the training field. They were joined by the 2 giant birds, which measured up to 5 meters with wings spread open, as they gazed down upon Wang Xian and gang. With icy stares and gnawing claws, the birds were ready to attack any time. "Abyss assassins, you guys are indeed savage. With guts to barge into the sacred grounds of our Heavenly Sound sect, you can forget about leaving here today, for you shall be buried within our grounds for eternity," said the elderly lady flatly. With her zither in hands, She swept her gaze across Wang Xian and gang. Haha, seems like the heavenly sound sect's bent on keeping us here till our deaths, with no means to compromise, huh? Wang Xian asked. In a cold demeanor, he surveyed the 14 inborn experts. Did you think you could leave after killing our sect members? The elderly lady asked without the slightest cringe on her face. She remained expressionless despite being face to face with the renowned Abyss. So what if they are the Abyss? The heavenly sound sect hath no fear. Haha, with just the few of you? Wang Xian let out a laugh. With a deathly stare, he continued, Those with the guts to kill members of the Abyss must be prepared for death. Should the heavenly sound sect dare to intervene, then let's have a fight. We'll see who's to be wiped out first. As Wang Xian's obnoxious statement trumpeted throughout the entire heavenly sound sect, the entire senior management could not help but narrow their eyes in fear. They took a look at the formidable 7-metered Inferno Divine Dragon, which currently stood in front of the Abyss assassins. Thereafter, they eyed the particular Abyss member, recalling how he had just destroyed the vice sect leader's zither with a single palm strike, to which their faces stiffened in vigilance. They were obnoxious beyond tolerance for challenging the sect to see which party would first perish. This made them either lunatics or powerful opponents. All around, the heavenly sound sect disciples watched on in silence as cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. Huh, the elderly lady expressed out of perplexity. She frowned upon hearing Wang Xian's words. Supreme Elder, the leader of Heavenly Sound sect greeted as he walked over to the elderly lady, placing a booklet in her hands. Her face twitched as she scanned through the records in the booklet. Her slight surprise was now replaced with anger in her eyes. Is this information reliable? She asked. It was the Abyss who tossed them over, the sect leader replied. Check. Deploy all manpower from our Heavenly Sound sect, and check thoroughly on this matter. Check, even if it should cost any lives. The elderly lady snapped in a rage. To think that a candidate had resorted to employing assassins to get rid of competitors in order to vie for the position of saintess. This was a taboo to the Heavenly Sound sect. Utterly shocked, the rest of the sect disciples stared at the Supreme Elder. They were clueless about what had caused such anger from the Supreme Elder. Even should our disciples from the Heavenly Sound sect have erred, it'll be up to us to handle it. By stepping onto the sacred grounds of our sect to commit murder, you Abyss really have no regard for us, have you? The elderly lady rebuked blatantly, tossing the booklet at the sect leader. Haha, let me tell you, old fogey, we've already killed your men. Should you dare stop us, we'll let the Heavenly Sound sect run in a bloodbath. Wang Xian fired back at the elderly lady. Slightly agitated, he glared at the rest of the sect. On the other hand, Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and the rest of Wang Xian's gang were oozing with bloodthirst. Having massacred over 1,000 dark conjurers previously, each of them had come with blood-stained hands. When their thirst for blood was unleashed, it was more than enough to spark terror. As for Wang Xian, he too was exuding a strong aura of the divine dragon, which shot straight ahead for the senior management of the Heavenly Sound sect. With his prowess on full display this time, even the air had intensified as it began to sizzle. The ground below Wang Xian's feet began to crack apart, and as it did, the crack widened and extended northwards. Roar! The Inferno Divine Dragon let out a growl before it descended in front of Wang Xian and transformed into a smaller, 1-meter dragon. The dragon rested its head on Wang Xian's shoulder while staring right ahead at the crowd with its cold and emotionless eyes. The air of invincibility was enough to spook the senior management from the Heavenly Sound sect. Such stance! The elderly lady panicked in a brief moment of fear. She could feel an element of fire sizzling up all around her. She even had the hunch that the surrounding air would begin to burn, should that particular one from the Abyss will it to. Dan realm. He must be an expert from the Dan realm, an elder standing not too far away mumbled with a burdened look. They're unrivaled. Given that Lao Tzu's currently away, the leader of Heavenly Sound sect squeaked softly. Having figured out Wang Xian's abilities, a tinge of fear flashed across his eyes. What is it? I've already killed your men. Aren't you going to strike? Wang Xian asked as he gazed past all the inborn experts from the Heavenly Sound sect. Chapter 330. Kill the Saint, Leave with Ease. The taunt resounded within the Heavenly Sound sect. However, the entire Heavenly Sound sect quietened down after Wang Xian's voice died down. No one dared to make a move. The expressions on the inborn experts from the Heavenly Sound sect were changing rapidly. The atmosphere instantly chilled. Around them, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect were shocked and horrified. Feeling that unrivaled aura, their bodies were shivering in fear. They were surprised to see that the members of the upper management of the sect did not react to the taunt. There were 14 inborn realm experts and 2 inborn level sacred birds from the Heavenly Sound sect right now. However, they didn't dare to attack the 10 assassins from the abyss. It's him. It's definitely him. At this moment, Tang Yinxian stared intensely at Wang Xian from the side of the training field. Even though he was wearing the abyss mask, she could still recognize him. That familiar figure was his. The amiable young man who had brought her an inborn spiritual weapon as gift yesterday was currently in their sacred sect and had killed the granddaughter of her vice sect leader. The scene of Wang Xian standing upright and facing off against the experts of the sect greatly shocked her. What incredible strength and imposing stance! Tang Yinxian couldn't match the figure of the person she had met and had a meal together with yesterday with the one in front of her eyes currently. However, she was certain that it was him. Haha, if you guys aren't going to fight, we are leaving then. Wang Xian laughed out loud and looked haughtily at the group. Behind the mask, he revealed a faint expression of ridicule. Oh, right. At this moment, Wang Xian turned his head around. The experts of the Heavenly Sound sect stared bitterly at Wang Xian. Murderous intent and shame filled their eyes. Old hag, you were too arrogant previously. Moreover, the disciple of the Heavenly Sound sect have killed 2 disciples of ours. I have to kill another one. As he finished his words, his figure disappeared from sight instantly. The next moment, Wang Xian appeared before the saint of the Heavenly Sound sect. Don't you dare! When the old lady saw Wang Xian appearing before the newly crowned saint in an instant, she was infuriated. She played the Heavenly Sound zither instantly, and sharp wind blades shrouded towards Wang Xian. Wang Xian didn't even look back. Waving his hand back, the dragon head around him enlarged. Roar! A wall of flames neutralized all the wind blades. Seeing this, the experts of the Heavenly Sound sect gasped. This was how horrifying and invincible a Dan realm expert was. At this moment, Wang Xian stared coldly at the horrified saint of the Heavenly Sound sect. He was the young men who provoked him the previous day. No, we have no qualms. No, please don't kill me. At this moment, Wang Xian could no longer see the arrogance and haughtiness from the saint. He pleaded for mercy in horror, and his face was filled with cold sweat. He almost wanted to kneel on the floor. Didn't you say you were going to kill me personally? Wang Xian looked mockingly at the saint of the Heavenly Sound sect and repeated the ruthless words he had said to Wang Xian the previous day. What? The saint was lost in the instant. However, a figure quickly flashed in his mind. His eyes popped wide open and were filled with disbelief. It can't be. How can this be possible? His inner self was screaming in despair. That rascal from yesterday, that insignificant guy from before. He's actually the leader of the abyss. He's the horrifying existence that all the experts in the sect didn't dare to go against. Yet he had actually made a bold claim to kill him the previous day. He felt strength being sapped away from his body as he slumped onto the chair behind him. His eyes were filled with despair. TSK. Contempt gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes. Waving his arm, intense flames shrouded the saint. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Abyss. A deep growl came from an inborn expert of the Heavenly Sound sect. Wang Xian turned over and laughed. Now that we have taken our revenge, the Abyss shall no longer have any feud with you guys. Obviously, if you guys aren't satisfied, our Abyss wouldn't mind playing with you. The hysterical laughter resounded throughout the training field. Subsequently, Wang Xian jumped and left rapidly. Behind him, Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and the other Dragonians followed closely behind and left the Heavenly Sound sect. The members of the upper management of the Heavenly Sound sect pulled long faces and looked bitterly at the rapidly disappearing figures. They couldn't help but feel helpless. If our Laozu was here, we wouldn't have had to suffer such grievances. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sound sect growled bitterly, clenching his fist tightly. 10 assassins of the Abyss had barged into their Heavenly Sound sect and killed 2 of their disciples right in front of them. One of them was the granddaughter of the vice sect leader, while the other was their saint. They showed no regards and killed them in a domineering manner. Puff, I'll report this to Laozu. Besides this, settle this matter as soon as possible. The old lady took a deep breath. She stared at the book in the hands of the sect leader and instructed coldly. The Abyss had killed their disciples. This was something they would want to make them pay for. However, the one who had offended the Abyss and resulted in them killing the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect would receive punishment too, regardless of whether she was already dead. Nonetheless, they wanted to investigate this matter thoroughly. If there were people supporting these people in the dark, they shall not be forgiven either. The old lady took a glance at the vice sect leader before leaving. The surrounding few inborn experts also pulled long faces as they moved towards the main peak to discuss the matter. That's too horrifying. The Abyss is simply too strong. They actually managed to intimidate our experts from taking actions. Their strength has definitely reached the level of a sacred sect. Otherwise, our Heavenly Sound sect wouldn't be that wary. Perhaps it's because our Laozu isn't around and the Supreme Elder didn't dare to act rashly. The assassin from the Abyss is too strong. Look at our training field. Even the tough flooring of the training field has cracks of over 10 meters long. Is he still human? Our saint was killed directly. He's really unlucky. The Abyss is indeed incomparably horrifying and domineering, just as the rumors said. The saint hadn't offended them, but was still implicated in this. The surrounding disciples exchanged glances and whispered softly among themselves. For the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect, it was as though they had experienced a 10-0 earthquake. The self-proclaimed invincible sect was invaded directly, and invaders even killed on the ground. This had doused their arrogant attitude with a cold basin of water. How did Senior Sister, who offend the assassins of the Abyss? From what their leader said, it appears that Senior Sister, who had employed the dark conjurers to assassinate their disciples. At this moment, the disciples of the Heavenly Sound sect thought of a question when they looked at the corpse on the stage. The crowd was confused, baffled, surprised, and shocked. Who would have expected things to develop like this? Tang Yinxian looked at the haozhong in his hands before looking in the direction where the saint had been reduced to dust. At this moment, she couldn't help but sigh. She knew why Hu Qingqing had been killed, and also the reason why the saint had eventually been reduced to dust. All of these things were simply the consequences of their actions. The pride of an expert isn't something they could offend. They were too arrogant. Tang Yinxian shook her head slightly and placed Haozhong back into the box. After today's incident, the position of the saintess was almost certainly hers. Chapter 331. To refine all elixir pills in the world with the origin source flame. Young Master, Mo Sherwu has sent word. The floating island is now beside the Bohai Sea. A group of Dragon Palace members is now guarding it. The Dragonians updated Wang Xian. After exiting from the Heavenly Sound sect, 7 Dragonians from the Abyss parted ways with Wang Xian, while he rushed over to Rivertown on his caravan. The original plan was to transform the Bohai Sea Island into a base, but it had since been aborted due to the emergence of the Sacred Seas of Swords. Construction on the island was also left to waste, while the group of Dragonians was given free rein to develop on their own. As of now, the Bohai Sea Island was of minimal use to Wang Xian and gang. On the other hand, the floating island had taken over as the optimal base. We'll transform the floating island and refurbish a part of it into the future base of the Dragon Sect. In addition, we'll refurbish another part of the island into a scenic spot. Yes, and the area shall also serve as a place for residence, fun, and leisure. Wang Xian elaborated with a radiating smile. Yes, young master. Mo Qinglong nodded in acknowledgement. The caravan sped its way ahead and arrived at the villa before nightfall. Wang Xian walked into the villa beaming, only to realize that there was no one in the room. He gave Xiaoyu a call and was told that the group of girls had gone out for a meal and shopping. Let's go. Let's head over to the floating island, Wang Xian said, shaking his head. With one quick shift, Wang Xian dived into the sea and hurried over in the direction of the floating island. As he was nearing the floating island, Wang Xian could see his group of Dragon Sect henchmen patrolling around the island. Under their protection, the floating island would never be seized, even if it should be discovered. 3 level 11 creatures and close to another 30 inborn level fighters had spaced themselves out around the perimeter of the island. This made the island impregnable, even if it was attacked by 2 sacred sects at once. Whereas Mo Shiwu had seen to the clearing up and sorting out of the treasures on the island single-handedly, keeping them stored in a room. After these treasures were sold for cash, there would be more than sufficient funds to commence construction on the island. Under Wang Xian's orders, the leisure area was to be constructed in resemblance to famous beaches, so it would be very ideal as a relaxation spot in the times to come. As he arrived at the spiritual medicine garden, Wang Xian saw that the spiritual medicine plants were growing well and healthy. Let's test out my art of refining elixir pills, Wang Xian suggested to himself. He'd had no opportunity to try it out ever since he had gained the technique. The art of refining elixir pills was an ability which Wang Xian now prioritized. His intention was thus to master it as soon as possible. The most ordinary of elixir pills would be level 1 elixir pills, amongst which the Qi accumulation pills considered the elementary elixir pill. Level 2 to 3 martial artists would take them to upgrade a level directly. In addition, the Qi accumulation pills able to help strengthen one's constitution when taken, which would greatly benefit even level 5 to 6 martial artists. As he stood in front of the spiritual medicine garden, he began to recall individual elixir pill recipes. Qi accumulation grass and water flower, Wang Xian exclaimed. He remembered that only 2 types of spiritual grasses were required in the refinement of a Qi accumulation pill, whereas there was only one formula to abide by in the refinement of an elixir pill. A level 1 elixir pill would be attained using flame refinement, along with the combination of 2 types of spiritual grasses in a perfected ratio, while a level 2 elixir pill would require the combination of 4 spiritual grass types during refinement, and 9 types in the case of a level 3 elixir pill, and so on and so forth. Hence, a level 4 elixir pill would take up 16 spiritual grass types, given that the formula was the square of the pill level in question. Meanwhile, a stock of Qi accumulation pill and a water flower could produce more than 1 elixir pill after refinement, where powerful alchemists could even produce up to 3 pills in one go. And these several pills would be worth more than 10 times the original value of the Qi accumulation grass and water flower combined. Thus, the occupation of an alchemist was a very lucrative career. Yet, at the same time, it was one which required substantial investment. Hence, many alchemists ended up losing money, as the refinement of elixir pills did not come with guaranteed success. According to Sui Huang, only several forces within the underworld had mastered the art of refining elixir pills, thus controlling its industry, which makes alchemists even rarer than miracle doctors. The medical saint sect was the best when it came to the art of refining elixir pills, given that they possessed the most elixir pill recipes. Using these elixir pills to help save and treat patients, they were thus ranked amongst the top 3 of all sacred sects. Next came the medical tripod mountain sect. Not only were they a first-class force, but the apex of all, one which even other sacred sects maintained close ties with. There were barely any existing alchemists within the underworld, which explained why elixir pills became even rarer. Wang Xian walked into the spiritual medicine garden and plucked a stalk of qi accumulation grass and a water flower. As the 2 were level 1 spiritual grasses, there were plenty of them growing in the garden, to which he began to recollect the composite ratio of the qi accumulation pill along with the essentials of refining one. Based on the manual on the art of refining elixir pills, an alchemy furnace is not required for the refinement of pills below level 3. It'll only be necessary for pills of higher levels. Under stabilized flames, melt the qi accumulation grass and water flower. At the moment when they melt, mix the 2 together in ratios of 1, 0, 35 to 2, 312, respectively. Thereafter, simmer the mix in mid-fire until the 2 blend together perfectly, Wang Xian recited. This involved the melting and ablation points. As the name suggests, melting points concern the melting of composites. As for ablation, this involves the composite turning into ash. Where the flames are too strong, the spiritual grasses would turn directly into ash and render the refinement a complete failure. In addition, there were the opportune moments of blending and timings to be considered, making it all the more complicated. Hence, the art of refining elixir pills was not as simple as it seemed. It would take hundreds, even thousands of practice attempts before one could become an alchemist. Humph, let's give it a go. Wang Xian willed himself as he took in a deep breath. By inhaling deeply, he helped to calm himself down as he sorted his thoughts out. First came the controlling of the flame temperatures, which had to be neither too high nor too low. Next came the composite ratios of the ingredients. The controlling of flames was a piece of cake to Wang Xian. With the origin source flame in his possession, he could therefore change the temperatures of the flame at will. As Wang Xian stretched his palms out, a ball of flames appeared on both. At his will, he transformed the flames into 2 small objects, which resembled ramekins. Glowing, the 2 flaming bowls seemed to brim with life. First, let's try to control and adjust the flames, Wang Xian said as he looked at the 2 flaming bowls. At his will, the flames on the left bowl darkened in color, while the one on the right remained constant. All right, the 2 spiritual grasses need to be mixed together within 1 second after they've melted. Plus, they have to be blended according to the perfect ratio. Otherwise, the elixir pill will end up as poison instead of medicine, Wang Xian cautioned. With one swift toss, Wang Xian emptied the 2 spiritual grasses into the flaming bowls. Just then the notification came. Ding! Are you intending to refine all elixir pills in the world with the origin source flame? To which Wang Xian was mildly startled as his face twitched briefly. Yes. Wang Xian nodded immediately as his eyes glistened. Suddenly, Wang Xian noticed changes in the flames in his hands. They turned red, crimson red to be exact, and as the 2 spiritual grasses landed upon the fiery surface, they melted into drops of liquid. The liquid appeared very eye-catching as it swirled within the origin source flame. None of the liquid had dissipated, as though it had been protected by the flames, which meant that the medicinal effects had not weakened either. TSK. At this rate, it seems like we can bypass many steps in the refining of elixir pills. Wang Xian gasped in excitement, controlling the liquids of the two spiritual grasses once again. He willed them, this time causing them to commence mixing. Blend. Wang Xian commanded with a glow in his eyes, looking at the four liquid masses. Chapter 332. The horrifying effects of refining elixir pills. The origin source flame was the ultimate source of flame. Flame represented succession, life, and civilization. On the other hand, it could also signify destruction. Refining elixir pills with the origin source flame was a perfect display of life. The flame wouldn't destroy the spiritual grass violently. Instead, it would fuse it perfectly into a new form. It was just like the sun that emitted flames. Only sunlight could enable better growth of many other living things. As the origin source flame melted the spiritual grass and enveloped it perfectly, it was able to prevent the loss of the medical effects. This process had also skipped the most important step of controlling the temperature of the flame. At the thought of Wang Xian, the liquid of qi accumulation grass and water flower fused together into a sphere slowly. As the origin source flame dissipated gradually, for elixir pills were slowly forming. A glow shimmered on the surface of these pills. Wang Xian was thrilled and stared intensely at the 4 elixir pills in his hand. The elixir pills were white and looked glossy. They were the size of a thumb and perfectly shaped. At the thought of Wang Xian, the information of these elixir pills popped up in his mind. Qi accumulation pill, level 1. Extractable dragon energy, 2,322. When he saw his first batch of elixir pills, Wang Xian was thrilled. He had succeeded. He had succeeded on his first try. At this moment, Wang Xian's attention fell on the last elixir pill, and he frowned. Broken Qi pill, level 1. Couldn't extract dragon energy. Broken Qi pill? Why is there a broken Qi pill? Furthermore, I can't extract dragon energy from it. Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. Suddenly, he recalled that when fusing the 2 spiritual medicines together, the liquid of the water flower wasn't sufficient for the last elixir pill. Although it wasn't enough, he still managed to gather the remains into an elixir pill. In the end, he got a broken Qi pill. When refining elixir pills fail, the product will be poisonous. Wang Xian sighed emotionally. However, he also discovered a horrifying aspect of refining elixir pills with his origin source flame. Just as the introduction of the system said, he could refine all elixir pills in the world with the origin source flame. Even if the elixir pill recipe was wrong, he could still concoct elixir pills. The difference was that the product might be poisonous. Spiritual medicine could complement and counter each other. When fusing water attribute spiritual medicine with fire attribute spiritual medicine, an explosion could be caused by an error in the process. However, this wouldn't happen with the origin source flame. The origin source flame would ensure they fused together. It would be great if all the pills made by the origin source flame were elixir pills. Wang Xian laughed delusionally. Using the origin source flame to refine elixir pills would be much easier for me. Wang Xian was ecstatic. He waved his hand and collected all the qi accumulation grass and water flower. He waved again, and the origin source flame appeared, after which he threw the spiritual medicine into the 2 red flames. Soon, all the spiritual medicine had been turned into liquid. Wang Xian looked at the 2 bowls of spiritual medicine liquid. Focusing on them, he started fusing them according to proportion. For him, allocating the proportion was the only thing that he needed to pay attention to. Explosions, temperature, control of the flame, and the loss of medicinal effects weren't issues for him. In the hands of Wang Xian, refining elixir pills had become a process of squeezing the spiritual medicine into the shape of the elixir pills. The fusion of two types of spiritual medicine was very easy for him. Soon, droplets of spiritual medicine, liquid, coalesced together. Within the spiritual medicine garden, all the qi accumulation grass and water flower had been made into elixir pills. There was a total of approximately 150 elixir pills made. A qi accumulation grass with a water flower would give 4 elixir pills. This is 1 to 2 more than what Sui Huang told me. Hee hee. Wang Xian smiled and revealed a satisfied expression. 150 level 1 elixir pills were equivalent to having 150 tufts of level 2 spiritual medicine. Currently, the price of a level 2 spiritual medicine is between $7 million to $10 million. If all 150 elixir pills are sold, it would be over $1 billion. Haha, refining elixir pills is a really lucrative business. If I can refine all the spiritual medicine in the garden into elixir pills, I wouldn't be far from being able to build the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian looked at the spiritual medicine around the garden. Based on the recipes in his mind, he started refining. Level 1 elixir pill, body strengthening pill, could be consumed even by ordinary humans. When an ordinary man consumed it, his strength would increase by 1 to 2 times. For cultivators, these effects were weak. However, Wang Xian wasn't concerned. There would definitely be people who would buy these elixir pills. Level 1 elixir pills were made quickly. Soon, he had over 30 body strengthening pills. Time to refine level 2 elixir pills. After completing the refining of level 1 elixir pills, Wang Xian started recalling the recipe for level 2 elixir pills, after which he started refining rapidly. Level 2 elixir pills had strong positive effects for level 6 and 7 martial artists. Level 2 elixir pills that strengthen one's strength could help level 5 and 6 martial artists increase 1 level directly. The value of level 2 elixir pills could reach $3 million to $4 million each. Level 3 elixir pills had extremely huge benefits for level 8 and 9 martial artists. Level 4 elixir pills could help a level 9 martial artist break through to the half step to Inborn Realm. As for level 5 elixir pills, they could help a half step to Inborn Realm expert break through to the Inborn Realm. Currently, Sui Huang was able to refine level 5 elixir pills. It was also because of this that the Sui family had so many inborn experts. Level 2 elixir pills required 4 types of spiritual medicine. However, it wasn't difficult at all. Level 3 elixir pills required the combination of 9 types of spiritual medicine. Similarly, Wang Xian didn't face any difficulty in it. I can't carry on. I don't have sufficient origin source flame. When Wang Xian was prepared to refine level 4 elixir pills, he suddenly found himself in an awkward situation. He had only managed to get his hands on a small amount of origin source flame. The origin source flame, converted from the 5-element stone plate, couldn't form 16 small cups of flame. At this point, there was only one way to solve this issue, and that was getting an alchemy furnace. Wang Xian recalled something Sui Huang had told him. If he wished to refine elixir pills above level 3, he would require the use of an alchemy furnace. The effects of an alchemy furnace were huge. It could reduce the amount of flame needed and increase the success rate of getting elixir pills. At the same time, it could protect him. When high-level elixir pills exploded, the destructive force would be exceptionally horrifying. An alchemy furnace is really rare and hard to find. Wang Xian frowned and looked at the elixir pills before him. Level 1 elixir pills, 150 qi accumulation pill and 30 body strengthening pill. Level 2 elixir pills, 20 bone grinding pill and 15 channel nourishing pill. Level 3 elixir pills, 20 soul enhancement pill. These were the elixir pills that Wang Xian had refined thus far. Refining level 3 elixir pills would require 9 different types of spiritual medicine. Wang Xian only managed to find spiritual medicine required for the soul enhancement pill in the spiritual medicine garden. The effects of the soul enhancement pill were extremely potent. It could increase a level 9 martial artist's chance of breaking through to the half-step to inborn realm by 20%. The effects were equivalent to consuming a level 4 spiritual bead. Since the spiritual bead was sold for $800 million previously, wouldn't that mean that these 20 level 3 elixir pills would be worth over $10 billion? Together with the other elixir pills, the value would be approximately $20 billion. Wang Xian was thrilled and excited. Selling elixir pills is indeed lucrative. For now, I need to find a way to sell these elixir pills. At the same time, I need to get an alchemy furnace. Level 4 and 5 elixir pills are the ones that are really valuable and lucrative. Chapter 333, Holy Goddess. Wang Xian was now rich. In fact, he was now a parvenu. He was in a great mood as he hugged onto the porcelain vase which held more than $20 billion worth of elixir pills. In the next couple of days, I'll have some rest and cultivate my spiritual grasses. Wang Xian grinned with satisfaction. He took a look at the time and realized that it was past 9 at night. In quick moves, he dashed for the villa. As he arrived at the villa, Wang Xian saw Guan Shuqing, Xiaoyu, Elder Fong, Xiaoran, and his younger sister practicing swordplay together in the courtyard. Sui Huang was lying at his side while giving guidance to those at practice. Currently, Guan Shuqing and Xiaoyu had attained status as half-step inborns, which meant Elder Fong was no longer qualified to mentor Xiaoyu. While she may have been sect leader of the Thistles and Thorns sect, Elder Fong's prowess was still below a half-step inborn. Rather than letting Elder Fong take her leave, Xiaoyu decided that she should stay on with her to practice cultivation. Naturally, Wang Xian did not treat Elder Fong shabbily either, but gifted her with a continual supply of spiritual grasses and spiritual medicine, which had eventually helped Elder Fong to attain the status of half-step inborn that she was today. As for Xiaoran, his abilities were only that of a level 8 martial artist. Nonetheless, it was a formidable feat, considering that he was only in his early teens. Meanwhile, he was accompanied by his little sister, Lu Mingxin, who practiced with him. Having been accepted by Sun Lingxiu as an apprentice, Mengxin not only cultivated herself by practicing the divine dragon transformation, but also the art of cultivation by miracle Dr. Xinhua, both of which were attributed to the light element. "Brother!" Xiaoyu cheered. "Xiao Xian!" Guan Shuqing called out. "Master!" Xiao Ran greeted. The group did not stop their practice even as they saw Wang Xian and gang approaching, but continued as they welcomed them with a beam. Wang Xian reciprocated with a smile while he stood in the courtyard and watched briefly. "You guys continue practicing," Sui Huang ordered while he continued to lie down on the bench, eyeing Wang Xian with slit eyes as he spoke. "I've only taken in one disciple, yet I'm here guiding an entire group through their cultivation." Sui Huang resigned himself to his fate, with his size obviously meant for Wang Xian. Formidable Sui Huang, a good master who's so rare even in 10,000 years. Wang Xian laughed as he headed towards his bedroom. "Not the slightest sincerity in your compliment," Sui Huang nagged before he continued to guide Guan Shuqing and the group. Inside the villa, Sun Lingxiu was busy working away in the kitchen. Upon seeing her from the back, Wang Xian smiled as he passed by. The current Sun Lingxiu was truly impeccable. When dawn broke the following day, Wang Xian gazed at Guan Shuqing, who was still in bed. She had gone back to sleep smirking after she managed to apply for leave. As Wang Xian walked down the villa, a thought came to mind. "I'll take a look at the Divine Dragon Medical Hall," Wang Xian decided before he hastened his pace over. He had not been to the Divine Dragon Medical Hall even once since placing it under the care of Sun Lingxiu, but the latter had given him a card just the day before. The card had held a value of more than $200 million, which were the takings of the medical hall for the past 10 days. This translates to more than $20 million in daily takings, which was much higher than what he had seen during his days over there. As Wang Xian arrived at the main entrance of the Divine Dragon Medical Hall, he was astonished by the sight before him. It was just around 10 in the morning, but more than 20 people had gathered at the main entrance. It was a group clad in ordinary wear, consisting of both young and old, many of whom looked like villagers. They were standing at the main entrance and queuing quietly, no one daring to create a ruckus. Wang Xian was rather surprised but continued to head inside. As he walked past the main entrance, he discovered that the interior had been flooded by people. The miracle Dr. Bloodman was also inside, treating patients and giving consultations. Several elderly people were lying on the sickbeds. With their shabby attire, it was clear that their conditions back home were less than ideal. Wang Xian turned to look at the surrounding walls, only to discover that they were covered in all sorts of pennant flags. On some of them were messages thanking Dr. Sun for her selfless dedication to helping and saving lives, while others complimented her as female miracle doctor of Great Chinese as an expression of gratitude for her contributions. Pennant flags of all varieties hung on the walls, covering them almost to the brim. Wang Xian continued to look at the sides and realized that the rules which he had set previously had all been changed. To save the dying and aid the injured, kind-hearted but poor patients shall receive treatment free of charge, one of the rules read. Martial artists of rich families will be charged no less than $5 million for treatment, another said. This is no doubt befitting of Sun Lingxiu's character. Wang Xian exclaimed as he saw the amended rules by the doors. He was not the least bit angry over the amendments, but instead admired Sun Lingxiu for her benevolent nature. Having witnessed many life and death situations and getting accustomed to such partings in the hospital, she had seen for herself countless patients who were unable to afford treatment due to poverty. Therefore, she chose to treat for free, which, of course, was meant solely for the impoverished, the kind but poor people, all of whom would be placed under the care of Miracle Dr. Bloodman. While he appeared to be a middle-aged man, Miracle Dr. Bloodman was in fact in his 80s and was able to determine people's character through certain means, which meant no one could go undetermined. That said, no one had dared to visit in disguise as a poor person, for the miracle Dr. Bloodman was not a kind soul himself. After some who had dared to risk it suffered as a result, none had made further attempts. The first level was meant for treatment of the ordinary folks, while the second level was set aside by Sun Lingxiu for the treatment of the affluent martial artists. With this, Wang Xian made his way up to the second floor. Just as Wang Xian arrived at the second floor and was about to walk further inside, he was hauled to a stop. Hold it right there. Queue up if you're here to seek treatment. Wait at the side, the voice ordered him. Huh. Wang Xian said in shock as he looked to the side. It was a young man who had called out to Wang Xian coldly as he sat at the side with his head tilted slightly skywards. Beside him were two other middle-aged men. Aside from the trio, there were two other young men, each with a sword in hand. It was clear that they were from the underworld. In spite of their air of arrogance, the three young men were very handsome-looking. There were also two fresh flowers which lay beside the young duo, looking really gorgeous. What's with this situation? Wang Xian questioned, slightly confused. He continued to walk inwards while brushing the young men aside. Don't you know the rules here? Access is strictly prohibited when miracle doctor sons attending to patients. The young man who had called out to Wang Xian earlier scolded again when he saw that he was being ignored. Who are you? Wang Xian asked indifferently as he eyed the young man. You're not qualified to know who I am. Wait here if you're seeking treatment. Otherwise, if you have designs on Dr. Sun, then scram. The young man hollered at Wang Xian, taking a domineering stance. Here to court the holy goddess? Identify yourself and we'll decide. If you're not qualified, then get out at once. One from the young duo chipped in snobbishly as he raised his head. Wang Xian found it a tad amusing as he looked at the three obnoxious young men. Holy goddess, huh? That must be the title meant for Sun Lingxiu. Given Sun Lingxiu's beauty and elegance, 99 out of 100 men would be attracted. It's only natural that she has suitors. Wang Xian laughed as he continued, making his way inside. Stop there. Didn't you hear? Are you courting death? The three young men threatened as their faces darkened when they saw Wang Xian's dismissal. As they stood up composedly, they fixed their focus on Wang Xian. The two middle-aged men glared at Wang Xian with icy stares. Sun Lingxiu frowned. She was treating a patient inside the consultation room when she heard the commotion outside. Turning her head over, she looked on in surprise but walked over to Wang Xian with all smiles immediately after. Xiao Xian, what brings you here at this hour? Sun Lingxiu beamed like a blooming flower, which was enough to make hearts flutter. I'm here to take a look. Wang Xian smiled back in response. The three wastrel disciples outside haven't been rude to you, have they? Sun Lingxiu asked blatantly. As she walked to Wang Xian's side, she swept her glance past the three young men. No, they haven't. These three look rather professional. They're pretty good. Wang Xian evaluated with a laugh. Haha, I'll make you tea. Sun Lingxiu giggled. She hurried back into the room to retrieve the teacups and started brewing Wang Xian's favorite Longjing tea. This, the three young men outside the room uttered as they stared at their goddess in astonishment. How is this possible? This can't be my goddess, their voices trailed off. Chapter 334. Mission at the Yellow River. The three young men at the door looked blankly at the scene. Sun Lingxiu was their goddess and was referred to as the holy goddess from Jiangbei by the entire medical world. At this moment, she was acting so lovingly with a young man. Even an idiot would be able to see in her eyes her love and interest for the young man. Moreover, what Miracle Doctor Sun had said had crushed their hearts. In their faces, she called them three good-for-nothings. She even asked the young man if the three of them had offended him. If they had, would she throw them out? On top of it, the response from the young man infuriated them further. The three door guards are pretty good. Door guards. The trio pulled a long face, stood there, and were shivering a little from anger. When they saw their dream goddess pouring tea for that young man enthusiastically while treating them coldly, they even had the thought of dying. Who's that guy? Why is our holy goddess treating him so warmingly? A young man growled in a low voice. He stared bitterly into the medical hall and clenched his fist tightly. However, he didn't dare to charge in or question. The reputation of the Divine Dragon Medical Hall was known throughout the underworld. The title of Holy Goddess and Miracle Doctor Sun wasn't just approval for her medical skills. It was also a recognition of the strength she possessed. 5 days ago, an elder of a first-class force had come to seek treatment. The elder agreed to pay 6 spiritual stone, but refused to pay up after treatment. The elder from the first-class force was then finished off by the blood man at ground floor. The first-class force was infuriated and sent 2 inborn experts to take revenge on the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. In the end, the 2 inborn experts never left the place. From that day onwards, everyone was shocked to realize that not only did the Holy Goddess, Miracle Doctor Sun, have incredible medical skills, but she also possessed horrifying strength. She would at least be at the inborn level. Since then, no one dared to kick up a ruckus in the Divine Dragon Medical Hall. As for the Holy Goddess, Miracle Doctor Sun, she made it to the 5th rank on the Miracle Doctor's chart, an extremely high ranking within 10 days. The expressions on the 3 young men changed rapidly. In the end, they walked out bitterly. The business is really good. Wang Xian looked at Sun Lingxiu and commented with a smile. Yeah, it's pretty good. We have patients from all over the world coming here to seek treatment each day. Sun Lingxiu revealed a joyous smile. However, we rarely get payments with spiritual stones. Wang Xian didn't mind and shook his head as he replied, It must have been tough on you. Not at all. I'm really happy with the way I'm living now. Sun Lingxiu replied contentedly. Xiao Xian, wait a minute for me. Let me treat a patient in the medical hall first. Looking at Sun Lingxiu's sincere expression, Wang Xian was taken aback and quickly looked around him. There was an isolated space near the window. Wang Xian walked over and saw a pink bolster. He smiled gently and switched on the computer by the side. After entering the Underworld website, Wang Xian started browsing. He had various types of elixir pills and wanted to sell them. One couldn't put things up for sale on the Underworld website. If one wished to sell something, he had to find the buyer himself. Wang Xian did find people looking to purchase elixir pills. However, these buyers were only looking for a single pill. Therefore, he ignored the request. When he clicked into the Miracle Doctor's chart, he was surprised to find Sun Lingxiu reaching the 5th rank on the Miracle Doctor's chart. Dr. Sun, this is our invitation letter. Our guys will be here to receive you 2 days from now. At this moment, the voice of a middle-aged man came from outside the medical hall. All right, I'll be there on time. Thank you, Dr. Sun. The middle-aged man left quickly, and Sun Lingxiu walked in with an invitation letter. Wang Xian looked at it inquisitively. This is an invitation letter from our country. They discovered a strange creature and a virus on a plain beside Huangqi City near the Yellow River. If one were bitten by the creature, he would definitely be dead. Furthermore, they found strong venom within the river water. Several hundreds of people had died, and the place is now cordoned off. There's a need to find the reason for it soon, or the virus might spread to other places. 3 days ago, the representatives of our country came to invite me. Once this incident is settled, they will give me a light attribute spiritual ball, Sun Lingxiu explained to Wang Xian. Oh, strange creatures and viruses? Wang Xian was surprised. You can't really call them strange creatures or viruses. Instead, the creatures there have undergone a horrifying mutation. Currently, the top mission in the underworld is also regarding this. If one could help resolve this matter, he could enter the national treasury and choose 2 items to his liking. Sun Lingxiu looked at Wang Xian and continued, Xiao Xian, are you interested in going to take a look? I can enter the national treasury and choose any 2 items. Wang Xian was shocked to hear Sun Lingxiu. If there was ever a place with lots of treasures, it was the national treasury. Considering that the country had issued the mission on the Underworld website, it would mean that there were things useful for martial artists. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there would be lots of inborn level weapons in the national treasury. It was said that there were 2 to 3 of the 10 famed swords kept within the National Museum. Besides weapons, there should be other powerful artifacts. These artifacts would likely draw the fervent attention of inborn experts. Wang Xian was dumbfounded. There should be alchemy furnaces in the National Treasury. Moreover, the level of the alchemy furnace I can find there should be pretty high. Wang Xian thought to himself. He immediately clicked into the thread of the mission on the Underworld website. Just as Sun Lingxiu had explained, the country had issued a mission regarding an incident that happened at Huangqi City near the Yellow River. Anyone who could identify the cause of the incident would be allowed to take 1 item from the National Treasury. If one could resolve the incident, he could take any 2 items of his liking. The reward for this mission could be considered really handsome. Wang Xian was almost certain that the reward for this mission would be an object at the level of an inborn spiritual weapon. Naturally, no one would stop you if you did not wish to take any of these priceless treasures after entering the National Treasury. Even the experts in the sacred sects will likely be attracted by this mission. Moreover, The country even invited and promised various miracle doctors various items on top of issuing the mission to the underworld. This mission is likely not as simple as it might seem, Wang Xian thought to himself. However, after pondering, he still decided to give it a try. If he could succeed and get a powerful alchemy furnace, it would be much easier for him to refine higher-level elixir pills. All right, let's go together. Wang Xian said to Sun Lingxiu. All right, let's go together. Xiao Xian, these are some pictures and information on the situation of the sealed village near the Yellow River. You can take a look first. Sun Lingxiu took out a file by the side and handed it to Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head and opened up the file. When he saw the pictures in the file, he was taken aback. Chapter 335. The Arrogant Young Man from Medical Saint Sect. They were strange, even eerie and yet ordinary creatures. There was an ant, a very huge one, and its head held a mass which resembled a mushroom. Then there was an all-black leech, with a mouth which was entirely split open. Its claws stuck out with countless sharp pricks. Next was a white leech, with teeth on its head. Its entire body was smudged in a sticky blood-colored liquid. While the last was a mosquito, a blood-sucking mosquito with a ghostly face and crimson body. These were 4 ordinary creatures, and yet they appeared so gruesome in the photos, as if they had gone through some terrifying mutation. Furthermore, each of these 4 otherwise tiny creatures were now the size of a human palm, which made them all the more horrifying. Each record was captioned by numerous sentences below. The 4 creatures moved at accelerated speeds. Unless one had the abilities of a level 7 to 8 martial artist, it was impossible to dodge their attacks. In addition, once bitten by such creatures, a person would turn maniac. They would start biting others like a walking corpse and spread the virus to the remaining unaffected. According to the records, there were currently plenty of these creatures over there, within a radius of 30 kilometers. Little wonder why the miracle doctor has been asked to order for such a mission. Wang Xian exclaimed in shock as he read through the records. Given that only level 8 to 9 martial artists can ensure their own safety in such a place, there would be great hazards should these creatures be able to spread the virus further, to the extent where irreversible damages and losses were inevitable. There'll be someone fetching me in the morning, the day after tomorrow. We'll head over together then. Sun Lingxiu said cheerfully. Sure. Wang Xian nodded back. He had attended 2 classes at the university after hanging around at the Divine Dragon Medical Hall for a while. When night came, he returned to the villa together with Guan Shuqing and Xiaoyu. Lan Qingyue had been busier lately as she was expanding deep-sea jewelry at astonishing speeds. Moreover, the Zhou jewelry had been sold to deep-sea jewelry for an astronomical price. Since the pilgrimage incident, the Lingyue sect had been completely scared out of their wits. They were afraid that Wang Xian might really lead a team of experts over to have their sect annihilated. Since the Zhou jewelry had been acquired by deep-sea jewelry, the 2 had merged to become the nation's largest jeweler, after which the company's market value had since doubled. Thus, Lan Qingyue had been busy handling company matters. The rest enjoyed a day of thorough relaxation at the villa. At dawn the following morning, a military jeep arrived at the villa's doorstep. A plain-clothed militant saluted Sun Lingxiu. Sit tight. We'll set off right away, the militant said. Wang Xian, Sun Lingxiu, and the miracle Dr. Bloodman got in the jeep, and in no time arrived at the military airport nearby. Immediately after, a helicopter flew the trio in the direction of the Huangqi city. Huangqi city was a Tier 3 to 4 small city, situated near the plains where the Yellow River flowed past. This time, their destination was set for a region by one of the tributaries of the Yellow River. The aircraft landed on a makeshift helipad within the plains. As Wang Xian and the rest alighted, they saw many soldiers who had gathered around. The region was now cordoned off by high-voltage wires in order to prevent creatures from escaping. but the method had yielded few results. Numerous temporary tents were also pitched up front. The area was also surrounded by many people, accompanied by tens of stationary aircrafts. "This way, please, miracle doctor's son," a middle-aged man directed as he led Sun Lingxiu and the rest. They ended up at a gigantic tent which stood in the central location. With one look, it was clear that the tent had been set up as a temporary military command center. It was massive and would not overcrowd even if it contained more than 100. In fact, the group could already see more than 100 inside when they first arrived. Wang Xian squinted his eyes briefly as he swept his gaze across. The tent was thronging with experts. There were more than a dozen inborn experts, while the remaining were all miracle doctors. There was a bald elder who stood out from the crowd, and Wang Xian recognized in an instant that he was Buddhist physician, who was ranked 6th on the miracle doctor's chart. Their arrival had turned many heads. Like a firefly which sparkled in the night, Sun Lingxiu shone in a pristine air which could not go unnoticed. "It's the holy goddess, miracle doctor's son," a group of young men in the tent exclaimed as their eyes glistened, to which even the middle-aged men could not help but take a few more glances. "Miracle doctor's son, this way please," said a middle-aged man dressed in military uniform when he saw Sun Lingxiu. "Sure." Sun Lingxiu nodded as she walked into the tent. Inside the tent, there were close to 30 seats, which were mostly occupied. Seated amongst them were people including all the inborn experts, as well as several top-ranking miracle doctors. As Sun Lingxiu had been invited along, it was only natural that she be qualified to sit at the front. Furthermore, she had the means to, given her current reputation. "Akak, it's rather crowded, but there aren't that many seats," Miracle Dr. Bloodman joked. As he laughed, he flopped onto a seat and looked around in relaxation. "The room capacity is limited. Plus, people will not gossip when the miracle doctors and experts are being seated here," the middle-aged militant explained with a smile. Indifferently, Wang Xian also sat down in a seat he found. He had just settled down when he felt a wave of cold stares surging towards him. Slightly taken aback, Wang Xian turned to take a look. Beside him, an aged elder looked on with burning stares. Beside him was a familiar figure. Yen, she the poison document. When Yen, she sensed Wang Xian looking in his direction. He acknowledged him with a friendly nod. "The Sacred Followers Guild," a voice announced. As it did, Wang Xian saw a group dressed in a synchronized outfit and felt a slight stir in his heart, whereas the elder smirked as he looked on dryly. It must be the master of miracle, Dr. Guanghua. Wang Xian speculated to himself as he revealed a faint smile, brushing the elder's smirk aside. "Fellows from the medical saint sect, this way, please," a voice greeted respectfully at the main entrance. Immediately, the crowd scrambled to give way, freeing up the path. A young man emerged in the middle of the crowd, with 2 other elders walking beside him. Exuding a fragrance of medicinal herbs, the arrogant trio made their way in with their heads held high. In particular, the young man who was walking in the middle, giving a dry smile while his gaze swept past all who were seated. With chest puffed out and head held high, the young man stopped briefly when he spotted Sun Lingxiu. Pausing for a moment, a glow flickered across his eyes. As he hurried his way over, he checked on the sides and looked towards Wang Xian. "Young lad, could you move over to the seat by the side?" an elder beside the young man said to Wang Xian flatly, while gesturing with his head low. Meanwhile, the young man remained silent. Medical saint sect. Even the medical saint sect's here, and with 3 representatives. One chirped. "I know those 2 elders. They are the poison duo of the medical saint sect. Inborn level experts, highly renowned." Another squeaked. "Who's that young man? How is it that he's able to stand in between the poison duo?" The third asked. "Can't you tell by looking at his attire?" The medical saint sect regards the Hua family and the Bian family as their core. There's a Bien character on the young man's attire. He's likely the core disciple of the Bien family, another explained. Chapter 336. Insignificant Being. Scram! At this moment, the surrounding crowd started whispering. Medical Saint sect was one of the 3 strongest sacred sects. Every action of theirs could draw the attention of the crowd. Although most of the people here were from powerful forces, few could match the Medical Saint sect. Wang Xian heard the old man. He frowned, lifted the cup by his side, and took a sip. "Aren't there seats right there?" he replied coldly. The young man laughed upon hearing Wang Xian. He ignored Wang Xian and looked to Sun Lingxiu, who was beside Wang Xian. "I believe this beautiful lady must be the holy goddess, Miracle Dr. Sunday. I have long heard of your name, but I'm still surprised to finally get to see you. You are indeed deserving of the goddess title." The young man extended his hand, smiled, and greeted. "I'm Bien Yaoquan from the Medical Saint sect." He's Bien Yaoquan? He's the core disciple of the Bien branch of Medical Saint sect and has a high chance of becoming the successor of the sect leader of the Medical Saint sect. The Hua family and Bien family of the Medical Saint sect don't have many descendants. However, every single one of them is part of the core or a member of the higher management of the Medical Saint sect. It appears that even the core disciples of the Medical Saint sect couldn't resist the charm of Miracle Dr. Sunday. The name of Holy Goddess is indeed apt. When the surrounding crowd heard the young man's introduction, they began whispering softly among themselves. Sun Lingxiu lifted her head and looked coldly at the young man. She then looked towards Wang Xian. There was an old man with lots of scars on his face beside Bien Yaoquan. At this moment, he revealed a horrifying smile. "You aren't qualified to sit here," said the old man emotionlessly to Wang Xian. "Who's that young man?" When the crowd heard the poison duo, they looked towards where Wang Xian was. Wang Xian had a young face, and many people did not recognize him. Only a few people frowned and sank into deep thought after looking at Wang Xian. Oh! Coldness gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes. The young man and 2 old men in front of them were incomparably imperious. "Who is qualified, then?" Wang Xian asked emotionlessly while tapping lightly on Zhanlu with his finger. "A brat like you is indeed not qualified," the old man with lots of scars said plainly, waving his hand slightly. A faint gas shrouded towards Wang Xian. "Ugly old man, keep your small tricks away." At this moment, a faint blood figure flashed across Wang Xian, and the voice of Miracle Dr. Bloodman resounded throughout the entire tent. Huh. 2 displeased voices sounded. One was from Bien Yaoquan. Seeing that Sun Lingxiu had completely ignored him, he was annoyed. As for Wang Xian, he wasn't paying attention to him at all. The poison duo would settle him. The second voice came from the old man with lots of scars. When he saw Miracle Dr. Bloodman move, he frowned. That is Miracle Dr. Bloodman, a famous miracle doctor in Europe. He is now following the holy goddess Miracle Dr. Sun and sees her as his master. That young man must be that miracle doctor from Rivertown. They actually dared to go against the Medical Saint sect. That's not a wise decision. When the surrounding crowd witnessed the developments, they were all shocked. "Scram! Bring your men along and get lost." Sun Lingxiu's expression turned cold immediately after seeing that ugly old man attacking Wang Xian with intoxicating poison. Even if others had attacked her, she wouldn't be this furious. In her heart, Wang Xian was someone that couldn't be offended. No one was allowed to do so. A flash of light gleamed in her eyes as she stared harshly at Bien Yaoquan. SSS. The surrounding crowd gasped upon hearing Sun Lingxiu. They had not expected the holy goddess to chide the people from the Medical Saint sect. "You." When he heard Sun Lingxiu's emotionless remarks, Bien Yaoquan instantly felt embarrassed. He had been courteous to her, and yet she chided him and demanded that he leave. Bien Yaoquan was really embarrassed and furious to be chided by someone he was fond of in front of the public. Die. When the poison duo heard Sun Lingxiu, their expressions changed as they turned around and glowered at Sun Lingxiu. Scram! Is there something freaking wrong with your hearing? Acting all high and mighty when you have just arrived. Which motherfucker raised you? You guys even attacked others with poison. Bastards, are you courting death? Sensing the two old men staring coldly at his master, Miracle Dr. Bloodman slammed his fists on the table heavily, stood up immediately and went on the offensive verbally with a string of vulgarities in English. He was in a tuxedo and looked just like a gentleman. However, what he said greatly contrasted his appearance. Rumble. The moment Miracle Dr. Bloodman finished his words, the poison duo turned green from anger. Horrifying aura started being emitted from them. What? You guys want to fight? Hee hee. This is going to be interesting. Sensing the two old men releasing their aura, Miracle Dr. Bloodman stared at them coldly. Blood, mist circulated around him. Everyone, please don't start a fight here. At this moment, a voice broke the standoff. The middle-aged man in a military uniform walked out and warned them. Hey, did you see what they have done? This ugly old man attacked us with poison. How presumptuous of them! They must be treating this as their backyard. Hearing the middle-aged man, Miracle Dr. Bloodman released his bloody aura, pointing at the old man with lots of scars as he spoke. The poison duo felt their eyebrows twitching a little as they stared intensely at Miracle Dr. Bloodman with dense killing intent. What right do you have to sit here? Bien Yaoquan looked furiously at Wang Xian and asked plainly. He's the 9th rank on the Miracle Doctor's chart. Miracle Dr. Wang from Rivertown. He's also the youngest of the Miracle Doctors. At this moment, the voice of Poison Doc, Yan Shi, sounded from a corner. He was playing with the poisonous snake in his hand as he made the remark in a light-hearted tone. When Bien Yaoquan heard him, he was taken aback and started feeling embarrassed. Bien Yaoquan. Wang Xian lifted his head, looked at the young man, and said, What are you then? You are just an insignificant being. You might have your parents giving in to you in medical saint sect, but you are in the outside world now. Who's going to give in to you? Questioning me? Just get lost. Wang Xian chided. The surrounding crowd looked at Bien Yaoquan with ridicule. There were lots of people here who were from sacred sect. Even if they weren't from sacred sects, they were inborn experts. They might fear the medical saint sect, but if they were afraid of a disciple from the medical saint sect, they would have let down their efforts to reach the inborn realm. Haha, rascal, take a look around you. Who dares to act cool if he doesn't have the strength to back it? Take a look at yourself. Among those that are seated, who is a second generation good for nothing? All of them are here because of their strength. The one who isn't qualified here is you. Miracle Dr. Bloodman mocked coldly. You. Bien Yaochuan's eyes were bloodshot as he stared furiously at Wang Xian and Miracle Dr. Bloodman. This was the first time his parents had let him out to experience the outside world. Yet, I'm a level 3 alchemist. Just wait and see. Chapter 337. Horrifying Creatures 1. Bien Yaochuan's soft growl resounded in the tent, stunning everyone as they looked amazed. An alchemist was a valuable occupation by itself. On top of that, he was a level 3 alchemist. Today, most martial artists consumed spiritual grass directly. There was a saying in the ancient martial art world, it's easy to obtain spiritual grass, but not elixir pills. Spiritual grass could be found in most of the deep mountain areas or along the riverbanks. They could also be grown through various unique techniques. However, elixir pills were uncommon. Firstly, not many people could master the art of refining elixir pills. Even Sui Huang viewed the art as an heirloom. Hence, its value was evident. Secondly, The consumption of the spiritual grass was way too overwhelming to cultivate an alchemist within average forces that possessed the art of refining elixir pills. The consumption could reach at least 100 to thousands of tufts. An average force would not be able to afford to consume thousands of tufts of spiritual grass, even if the grasses were level 1. Hence, an alchemist was a rare occupation with high status. I did not expect young Master Bien to turn out to be a powerful alchemist. What a great talent at such a young age. You're truly someone from Medical Saint Sect. You're a level 3 alchemist at such a young age. You must be gifted. That's a rare talent. After Bien, Yao Quan finished a sentence. The 2 inborn experts praised him from their chairs. Thank you. Upon hearing 2 inborn experts expressing their admiration for him, Bien Yao Quan felt he had regained some of his pride. He slightly lifted his chin and snorted to Wang Xian. Perhaps some people have forgotten about the saying that all medical skills in the world originated from Medical Saint Sect. Ha ha! The poison duo at the side swept their cold gazes across Wang Xian, Sun Ling Xiu, and Miracle Dr. Bloodman. Enough, people. Everyone's here. At this time, the middle-aged man in military uniform at the side called out. Bien, Yao Quan brushed his gaze coldly at Wang Xian and the rest before he sat down at the side. I believe everyone has read the file that I have sent over, said the middle-aged man as he looked at all the people around him. Everyone sat there quietly as they did not dare to interrupt him. This middle-aged man before them was also an inborn expert, backed by the state. You should have some understanding about the creatures stated in the file. We invited all the miracle doctors here to find out how these creatures turned out to be such terrifying beings. As the middle-aged man spoke, he beckoned to the door where several soldiers brought out transparent boxes immediately. In the boxes were several palm-sized creatures. They were all the common insects like ants, leeches, and mosquitoes. Just like the photos in the file, each of them looked terrifying and hideous. Bam, bam. The leeches in the transparent box were leaping violently, causing banging sounds. The power they exhibited was so huge that it was simply unbelievable. Miracle doctors, come over and take a look. The soldiers placed the boxes on the floor while the middle-aged man spoke to the miracle doctors. Without hesitation, Wang Xian stood up, followed by Sun Ling Xiu and Miracle Dr. Bloodman. They all came to the boxes. The rest of the miracle doctors also crowded together. This time, there were less than a score of miracle doctors, amongst which those ranked 5th to 13th on the miracle doctors chart were present. The remaining ones were elders of Sacred Followers Guild and the poison duo from Medical Saint Sect. The 2 elders from Sacred Followers Guild were about 100 years old. They were no longer practicing medicine in public. Hence, they were not ranked on the chart. However, their strength was not to be underestimated. No one knew how formidable they were. 13 miracle doctors stood in front of 4 glass boxes as they fixed their eyes on 4 horrifying mutated creatures. Wang Xian stared at the creatures and revealed a baffled expression on his face. Cadaveric ant, level 7, unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric leech, level 8, unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric black leech, level 7, unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric mosquito, level 8, unable to extract dragon energy. Cadaveric? Why is this word showing up in the names of all the creatures? Wang Xian observed the creatures with uncertainty, looking surprised. These creatures had been sucking fresh blood to maintain their life. They were also evolved with an ability to survive in the water. The middle-aged man said with a solemn look, "Their combat ability is equivalent to a level 7 or 8 martial artist, which is very powerful. What could it be that turned the ants into such horrifying monsters?" The miracle doctors were puzzled by the ants, which possessed the prowess of level 7 or 8 martial artists. Ants can indeed kill an elephant now. Let me take a look. The Buddhist physician, ranked 5th on the miracle doctor's chart, walked to the glass box with the ants and turned on the switch on the box. Hiss! As soon as the switch was turned on, a cadaveric ant revealed its gigantic teeth as it let out a shriek while biting down on the arm of Buddhist physician. Buddhist physician remained unwavering. He reached out and grabbed the ant with ease. A rancid smell, no signs of vitality and pain. They are similar to the legendary zombies. Buddhist physician examined the cadaveric ant in his hand and commented indifferently, "Zombie." The surrounding miracle doctors were slightly stunned. Zombies did exist, just like the vampires in the Western countries. However, there was a huge difference between zombies and vampires. Zombies were dead before they were resurrected. They had no intelligence, with a natural instinct to suck blood. But vampires were considered to be humans who had a unique way in cultivation arts. They were drastically different. Zombies had been prone to show up in ancient times, but most of the people tend to incinerate bodies in the modern days. Thus, no such creatures appeared anymore. Even if there were any, they were easy to deal with too. They are really almost like zombies. They are bloodsuckers that can't feel any pain. But humans will die after zombies suck their blood. If they suck the blood of humans, they will eventually turn into one of them. The middle-aged man added on, "Anyway, we took them to the lab for some tests. These creatures aren't really dead. Some form of energy keeps them alive so that they can continue growing, which marks a big difference from zombies." The surrounding miracle doctors knit their brows slightly. Ack, let me see." At this time, Miracle Dr. Bloodman was curious, since he was a vampire himself. Hence, it was natural for him to feel intimate with such creatures. The rest of the miracle doctors looked at him as they shared the same thought too. Miracle Dr. Bloodman stared at the box with the leeches. He reached out to the box and opened it, putting his palm inside. "Pah!" Instantly, a leech attached itself onto the palm and crawled up to his arm rapidly. Miracle Dr. Bloodman did not hinder it as he watched the leech without a word. The palm-sized leech raised its head, revealing a set of horrible teeth as it threaded its way into the Miracle Dr. Bloodman's arm. The younger ones who followed the elders out for experience could not help but shiver when they saw the palm-sized leech squeezing itself into the arm of Miracle Dr. Bloodman. Chapter 338. Horrifying Creature 2. Hee. It does have the characteristics of a vampire. It requires fresh blood to evolve. When sucking fresh blood, it would inject venom into the body of the host. This venom is really potent and could corrode one's body. Miracle Dr. Bloodman shut his eyes lightly and allowed the leech to move along his arm. It was an extremely gory scene. It appears to be a bloodline cultivator and could evolve quickly by absorbing sufficient fresh blood. This is also an exemplification of a high-level bloodline, Miracle Dr. Bloodman explained while showing a shocked expression. In the end, he opened his eyes slowly, looked at his arm, and added, "This creature is really horrifying." SSS. Wiggling his arm, a leech was forced out. He extended his finger and sliced open the body of the leech. Networks of red blood vessels connected throughout the body of the leech. The leech seemed devoid of the sense of pain. It had already extended its teeth and wanted to leech onto the body of Miracle Dr. Bloodman. Filthy creature! Miracle Dr. Bloodman waved his arm and flicked it into a glass box. Waving his hand again, drops of brownish liquid appeared. This is the venom within their body and the cause of their mutation, Miracle Dr. Bloodman said to the middle-aged man in military uniform. The eyes of the middle-aged man in military uniform beamed. He said gratefully to Miracle Dr. Bloodman, "Thank you, Miracle Doctor. You can collect an item from the National Treasury after this incident." That's generous of you. Miracle Dr. Bloodman's eyes lit up when he heard the middle-aged man in military uniform. The surrounding miracle doctors were all looking enviously at Miracle Dr. Bloodman. let me take a look at that venom. An old man from the Sacred Followers Guild said. He tapped on the venom with his hand and stared coldly at it. Assimilation. This venom could assimilate one's bloodline. Those who are weaker would be assimilated directly. The old man explained, and his eyebrows knitted together. How can we guard against this venom, then? Asked the middle-aged man in military uniform anxiously. Dark blood grass, a level 4 spiritual medicine. With the effects of the dark blood grass, the venom would be rendered completely ineffective even if it entered the body of a human, answered the old man. Dark blood grass. The middle-aged man in military uniform frowned and asked, for those who have been infected by the venom, can dark blood grass help in their recovery? Yes, answered the old man as he nodded his head. Level 3 elixir pill, blood cleansing pill, could do the same. At this moment, Bien Yaoquan lifted his head proudly and spoke plainly. Blood cleansing pill, mumbled the old man. He wasn't familiar with it, since young Master Bien is confident it couldn't be wrong. We have over 40 soldiers who are infected by this venom and are currently being tied down. Young Master Bien, could you help us with the refining of these elixir pills? We will provide you with the spiritual medicine required. After refining the elixir pills, young Master Bien can head to the National Treasury to pick a treasure too. The middle-aged man in military uniform continued. Besides that, we will be diving deep to search for the source of this virus. Based on our observation, there might be stronger mutated animals there. At that time, we would like young Master Bien to refine more elixir pills as prevention. Rest assured, leave this to me. Refining elixir pills is my specialty. Bien Yaoquan revealed a confident smile and looked cockily across the crowd. His attention eventually fell on Wang Xian as he smirked coldly. Everyone, please wait for me here. I'll prepare your accommodation. I'll leave these 4 creatures here. Everyone can take a closer look. But please be careful. The middle-aged man in military uniform spoke to the crowd before turning to Bien Yaoquan. Young Master Bien, please write down the spiritual medicine you need. We will prepare it right away. All right. Bien Yaoquan nodded his head and walked to the side to write it down, after which he handed the list to the middle-aged man in military uniform. Young Master Bien, do you require any other items? Asked the middle-aged man in military uniform after taking a look at the list. I'm good. I can refine level 3 elixir pills even without my alchemy furnace. Bien Yaoquan smiled confidently. Subsequently, he flipped his hand and a green flame appeared on his palm. Heavenly flame. Oh gosh, it's a heavenly flame. When the surrounding crowd caught a glimpse of it, they were shocked. Firmament flame, an exceptional flame for refining elixir. It could also increase the success rate of refining elixir pills. Bien Yaoquan explained, plainly with pride. Incredible! The middle-aged man in military uniform wasn't stingy with his compliments. Medical Saint Sect, indeed, lives up to his name. Even a core disciple has a heavenly flame. They must be really rich. The surrounding crowd was shocked. Young Master Bien, we will send the spiritual medicine over in half an hour, the middle-aged man in military uniform said with a gentle smile. In that case, I'll just wait here. Bien Yaoquan nodded his head and turned to Wang Xian. He lifted his head slightly and remarked, all the medical techniques in the world originated from the Medical Saint Sect. However, the Medical Saint Sect isn't just focused on medical skills. We also delve into the arts of refining elixir pills. The arts of refining elixir pills is of a higher status than medical skills. As he completed his words, he turned to Sun Lingxiu before continuing in a cold tone. Don't be so arrogant just because others are calling you the Holy Goddess. In my eyes, you are just an average woman. TSK. Bien Yaoquan walked to a chair after speaking. The surrounding miracle doctors frowned, but didn't say a thing. Even the group from the Sacred Followers Guild didn't retort what Bien Yaoquan said. There were bases to the claim that all medical techniques originated from the medical saint sect. The Hua family and Bian family of the medical saint sect were descendants of Hua Tuo and Bian He. They were the founding fathers of medical techniques in Chinese history. 99% of medical techniques had originated from them. The medical techniques of the miracle doctors around had all originated from the medical saint sect. The medical saint sect had a long history that stretched back 400 to 500 years. For the medical saint sect, they were more interested in the arts of refining elixir pills instead of medical techniques. Only direct descendant disciples of the Hua family and Bian family were allowed to learn the arts of refining elixir pills. As for the external disciples, they were only taught medical techniques. All the miracle doctors and even the medical techniques of the Sacred Followers Guild were leaked from ex-external disciples of the medical saint sect. Therefore, even though the sect leader of the Sacred Followers Guild ranked higher than the sect leader of the medical saint sect on the miracle doctor's chart, the sacred grounds of medical techniques were still at the medical saint sect. From their names, one could also tell their intertwined origins. The path of elixir pills is the greatest path. The Buddhist physician held a string of Buddha beads in his hands as he mumbled to himself. Miracle doctors saved lives, but alchemists could strengthen oneself and others. Saving and strengthening were different in nature. The crowd of miracle doctors looked enviously at Bian Yaoquan. However, they soon kept such feelings to themselves and started researching the mutated animal in the glass box. Wang Xian glanced disdainfully at Bian Yaoquan, who believed he was better than the rest. Chapter 339. I know how to refine elixir pills too. Brat, tell me how to recover Guanghua's arm. I can forget about everything in the past. Just as Wang Xian was studying the 4 mutations, an icy cold voice was heard. Without looking up, Wang Xian knew it was the elder from Sacred Followers Guild who had been eyeing him the moment he entered. Since he lost the bet, he has to bear the consequences. What now? I crippled the young one, and an old one is here to seek revenge? Wang Xian spun around slowly as he looked at the Sacred Followers Guild elder, ridiculously. I'm just going to ask you once. Are you telling me or not? The elder from Sacred Followers Guild asked Wang Xian emotionlessly. 500 spiritual stones, and I'll treat your disciple's arm. Otherwise, forget it. Wang Xian stared at him with a smile. Fine. I hope you always remain firm, like you did now. Sacred Followers Guild elder quirked his lips and revealed a cold smile. Wang Xian turned around and ignored him as he placed his focus once again on those mutated creatures. He reached out and grabbed a cadaveric ant, sensing its internal structure and the blood vessels within it. After doing so, he sank into deep thought. Based on his speculation, the mutation that occurred on these creatures was not caused by any virus. It was caused by some form of powerful blood. These creatures had evolved due to the blood and transformed into level 7 or level 8 existences. His deduction surprised him. If a drop of blood could allow ants and mosquitoes to evolve into such a daunting stage, how domineering could that blood be? What kind of existence is it? At least, it was much stronger than Wang Xian. I must be careful if there's such a daunting bloodline around. Wang Xian was slightly stern, as such a formidable existence was not something he could deal with at the moment. Young Master Bian, the spiritual grasses have arrived. After an hour, the middle-aged man walked in and spoke to Bian Yaoquan. Oh, that's pretty fast. How many tufts did you bring for the 9 different types of level 3 spiritual grass? Bian Yaoquan stood up and asked this with a beaming face. We brought 100 tufts per type. How many pills can you refine? The middle-aged man asked with expectation. 100 tufts per type. Bian Yaoquan was slightly taken aback. Instantly he answered confidently. I may be a level 3 alchemist, but my success rate of refining the pills can hit 20%. I can refine about 2 to 3 blood cleansing pills at one time. With 100 portions of ingredients, I can refine at least 40 to 50 pills. 40 to 50 pills. The middle-aged man in uniform was looking surprised. 40 to 50 level 3 pills were equivalent to 40 to 50 tufts of level 4 spiritual grasses. The value of 900 tufts of spiritual grass had increased by more than tenfold. Only alchemists could achieve such formidable results. Wow, that's scary. Using those spiritual grasses alone, he could obtain 40 to 50 level 4 spiritual medicine. The alchemist is indeed powerful. He's just too formidable. No wonder medical saint sect did not care about losing out in medical skills, and only wanted their core disciples to practice the art of refining elixir pills. A formidable alchemist is scary. The surrounding crowd exclaimed with shocked faces. The power of alchemy struck horror in everyone present. Level 3 pills were extremely useful to a level 9 martial artist. With sufficient spiritual grass, an alchemist could quickly enhance the strength of a level 9 martial artist, and even allow them to make a breakthrough to half-step to inborn. Medical saint sect was insurmountable due to powerful art of refining elixir pills. The power of art of refining elixir pills is far from what you can imagine. Tints of envy flashed in the poison duo's eyes as they looked at the crowd with a disdainful look. Young Master Bien, could you help to refine some pills for us if we prepare enough spiritual grass? We will, of course, pay you handsomely. An inborn expert could not help but say this respectfully to Bien Yaoquan. Initially, all of them had thought that Bien Yaoquan was just some playful and hedonistic disciple. No one had ever felt that he could be such a talented and powerful alchemist. So everyone was shocked. We can discuss it next time. Upon seeing an inborn expert speaking to him with respect, Bien Yaoquan curled his lips slightly and spoke impassively. Sure, young Master Bien, please carry on with refining these pills. Young Master Bien, can you show us your art of refining elixir pills? Some experts around him were gazing at Bien Yaoquan with faces full of expectations. Even the miracle doctors had glistening eyes. They wanted to witness the amazing art as well. I'll permit you to watch if you keep absolutely silent when I'm refining the pills. Bien Yaoquan answered proudly. Of course, we won't make a single noise. Just hoping you'll broaden our horizons. A miracle, Doctor replied with a beaming face. Bien Yaoquan nodded with a smile as he gazed at the spiritual grass by the side. Watch closely then. Bien Yaoquan was not keeping any secrets at all. Even if he had to refine elixir pills in front of a crowd, they would not be able to learn the art. Refining pills was harder than becoming a miracle doctor. Moreover, every pill has its own recipe. Without the recipe, one could not possibly refine the pill. Bien Yaoquan flung his arm and grabbed tufts of spiritual grass. He spread out his left hand, and a greenish flame appeared before him. The flame was giving off bouncy vitality. Firmament flame of heavenly flame was a flame that was suitable for refining elixirs. His father had gone through hardships to obtain it. Using firmament flame to refine pills could increase the success rate by 10%. Bien Yaoquan focused and squinted his eyes slightly, giving off a vibe similar to a great master. In sequence, he hurled the various spiritual grasses at the firmament flame as they began to melt slowly. All the spiritual grasses melted into spiritual liquid after approximately 30 seconds. Bien Yaoquan was looking all serious as he matched the recipe bit by bit. When the crowd saw Bien Yaoquan refining the elixir pills on the spot, they tried to hold their breath as they watched with full attention. After 5 minutes, Bien Yaoquan exclaimed with a stern-looking face as 3 pools of liquid slowly coalesced together. He shouted out with a film of cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. Elixir pill. Form. He yelled again as the flame grew intense before him. The greenish flame cast a shadow on Bien Yaoquan that made him look like some great masters. Boom! Just then, a thud was heard, and the greenish flame exploded in different directions. The poison duo at the side was prepared for it as they swung their arms and suppressed the exploding sparks. Done! Bien Yaoquan was flushed with redness on his cheeks. With a glistening radiance in his eyes, he said, "Haha, I got 2 pills. Not too bad." When the 2 pills showed up in front of him, he was looking prideful. He had succeeded on his first try. Such talent made him a peerless genius. Marvelous. He just refined the pills in 10 minutes, bravo. Young Master Bien is a rare talent. His art of refining elixir pills is formidable. At his age, he's insurmountable. The most talented youth in this world is you, young Master Bien. All the experts and miracle doctors marveled and praised young Master Bien. Ha ha. Young Master Bien exhibited an invincible look with hearty laughter. Talking about art of refining elixir pills, if I, Bien Yaoquan, proclaim myself to be second among the younger generation, I'm sure no one will claim to be first. Besides, when I improve my art of refining elixir pills, I can simply use elixir pills to make up for the absence of medical skills. By then, I'll be unrivaled in terms of medical skills and art of refining elixir pills. Bien Yaoquan exhibited from within himself an immense confidence that was commonly seen in heroes. Poof! At this time, Wang Xian could not help but give a half-suppressed laugh. Chapter 340. Frog in the Well. A harsh, disdainful voice sounded and shocked everyone. The crowd looked towards the source of the voice, trying to determine who the one mocking was, and if he was qualified to do so. Huh! When Bien Yaoquan heard this voice, he immediately turned around. When he saw Wang Xian, he squinted his eyes. The surrounding crowd also looked at Wang Xian in shock. "Oh, Miracle Dr. Wang, what rights do you have to ridicule me? Who gave you the courage?" Before Bien Yaoquan even spoke, an inborn expert stared at Wang Xian and questioned him harshly. "That's right. The arts of refining elixir pills are profound. Young Master Bien's arts of refining elixir pills could already be considered to be Grandmaster class. You are a far cry from young Master Bien," another inborn expert said with contempt, glowering at Wang Xian. "TSK, you better watch your mouth. Otherwise, I'll do it for you." Bien Yaoquan's lips curved up slightly as he stared coldly at Wang Xian. "Hee, it's nothing much. I just saw an explosion and found it hilarious." Sensing that everyone's attention had gathered on him, Wang Xian replied with a smile. "Ha, brat, do you even know what refining elixir pills is? Do you know the steps of refining elixir pills? Do you know what is meant by elixir formation rate?" Bien Yaoquan pulled a long face upon hearing Wang Xian. He questioned harshly, "You are just a brat who doesn't know anything, and yet you dare to question me? If you don't know anything, just shut your mouth." For an alchemist, achieving an elixir formation rate of 10% could be considered outstanding. Pill explosion is a really common occurrence. A miracle doctor took a glance at Wang Xian and commented plainly, "Oh, is it?" Wang Xian looked mockingly at Bien Yaoquan, turned to the few inborn experts who spoke up for him, and remarked, "I know a little about refining elixir pills too. Moreover, it happens that I know the elixir pill recipe for a blood-cleansing pill." As he spoke, he walked towards the place where the spiritual medicine was placed. He looked at the 2 elixir pills in his hands, shook his head, and commented, "What a waste! In my eyes, your refining skills are too trash." Huh! Wang Xian's arrogant words shocked the surrounding crowd as they all turned towards him. "Shut up! Do you even know anything about the arts of refining elixir pills?" Bien Yaoquan pulled a long face and glowered at Wang Xian. "As a factionless doctor, there's no way you would know about it. Yet, you dared to criticize my arts of refining elixir pills? I do know a little, and am definitely better than you in it." Wang Xian smiled plainly, after which he looked to the spiritual medicine beside him and said emotionlessly, "Step aside!" After completing his words, he moved his arm. Rumble. Dull red flames appeared on Wang Xian's hand instantly. Waving his hand once again, tufts of spiritual medicine flew towards him. Huh. Seeing that Wang Xian was starting to refine elixir pills, Bian Yaoquan instantly turned gloomy. He looked at the flames on Wang Xian's hand and revealed a mocking smile. That's just an ordinary flame. Even if you know about refining elixir pills, your elixir formation rate will be less than 10%. That will be a total waste of spiritual medicine. Look closely. Frog in the well. Wang Xian remarked plainly. His remarks infuriated Bian Yaoquan as he clenched his fist tightly. In that case, I would like to see what you are capable of to be so brazen here. The surrounding experts and miracle doctors looked at Wang Xian, baffled. How would a factionless doctor be capable of getting in touch with the arts of refining elixir pills? He's just trying to garner attention, the elder from the Sacred Followers Guild said, pulling a long face. Just as the elder from the Sacred Followers Guild finished his words, Wang Xian waved his arm and 9 small cups made of flames appeared before him. The appearance of 9 vivid flame cups shocked the crowd. His control of fire is so incredible. He can actually form replica objects with flames. This miracle Dr. Wang is definitely not weak. The eyes of an inborn expert constricted as he looked at the 9 small cups. He's actually capable of forming replica objects with flames. Bian Yaoquan shivered in anger, but was shocked by what Wang Xian was capable of. Puff! In this instant, tufts of spiritual medicine were thrown into each cup as Wang Xian moved his arm again slightly. The spiritual medicine melted at an unbelievable speed. How can this be possible? How could he melt them so quickly? Bian Yaoquan couldn't help but exclaim after witnessing the speed at which the spiritual medicine was turned into liquid. When Wang Xian heard his voice, he remarked emotionlessly, "Shut up, frog in the well." You. Bian Yaoquan opened his eyes widely and gave Wang Xian a deathly stare. Wang Xian didn't pay attention to him. He was focused on the spiritual liquid and gradually fusing them together. 1, 2, 3. In a short span of 10 seconds, 3 balls of liquid had coalesced together. Elixir pills form. Wang Xian shouted. As the flame dissipated, he grabbed the 3 green pills with his hand. The green was the same shade as a jade stone, and the pills had an alluring glow to them. 3 elixir pills. Given 100 sets of spiritual medicine for the blood cleansing pill, I can probably get 300 blood cleansing pills. Yeah, that's it. Wang Xian smiled faintly and handed the blood cleansing pill to the middle-aged man in military uniform. The middle-aged man in military uniform was shocked to see the elixir pills Wang Xian had handed to him. He took up the elixir pills made by Bian Yaoquan and made a comparison. To his astonishment, the glow and luster of Bian Yaoquan's elixir pills were a little inferior. The surrounding crowd was shocked too. The whole process appeared to be too easy and casual. Bian Yaoquan had taken approximately 10 minutes to make 2 elixir pills previously. Moreover, he seemed cautious throughout the whole process. On the other hand, this miracle Dr. Wang had made 3 elixir pills within a minute. Furthermore, he looked casual and relaxed throughout the same process. From this, one could tell the difference in their strengths. They were on a completely different scale. 300 elixir pills. How could this be possible? A miracle doctor felt disbelief and gave a deadly stare at the blood-cleansing pills in the middle-aged man in military uniform's hands. 100% success rate, 900 tufts of level 3 spiritual medicine for 300 elixir pills? This can't be possible. 3 tufts of level 3 spiritual medicine for an elixir pill with effects of a level 4 spiritual medicine? This is crazy. This is crazy. This can't be. It definitely isn't possible. How can he do this so quickly? Bien Yaochuan's eyes had popped wide open. Disbelief was written all over his face. Even a level 5 and 6 alchemist couldn't attain 100% success rate. This couldn't be possible, shouted Bien Yaoquan. Nothing is impossible. Wang Xian revealed a mocking smirk upon seeing how Bien Yaoquan had reacted. With your level of expertise, how could you even claim to be unrivaled? What a joke! Wang Xian laughed and looked at the middle-aged man in military uniform. Leave this spiritual medicine to me. 300 elixir pills shouldn't be a problem. Really? Even if you give us 200 or 100, it would be fine. As long as Miracle Dr. Wang can do it, you can enter the National Treasury to pick a treasure. The middle-aged man in military uniform said with beaming eyes. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head and continued, I'll need a quiet room. Sure, we will arrange for it immediately. The middle-aged man in military uniform agreed without any hesitation. As for Bien Yaoquan, who was standing next to him, he had completely forgotten about him. For the same amount of materials, one could only give 40 to 50 pills while the other could give 300. The two men weren't on the same scale. Therefore, he naturally knew how to choose. As for that Bien Yaoquan, he could just stay away. It wasn't that the middle-aged man in military uniform was ruthless. It was just that the difference in their expertise in refining elixir pills was too great. Chapter 341. The Appalling Yellow River. How is this possible? As the middle-aged man in uniform left with Wang Xian, Bien Yaoquan stood in the same spot with full and round eyes. Those eyes were filled with utter disbelief as he stared at their backs. He clenched his fist. To think he was the most talented and outstanding disciple of Medical Saint Sect, a level 3 alchemist at age 30. He had been told that he was a rare genius. His parents had even told him that he would be the most attention-grabbing genius as soon as he walked out of Medical Saint Sect. He was unrivaled in the younger generation. Yet he had received blows one after another today. In particular from someone who actually knew art of refining elixir pills and was so proficient in it. His incredible refining speed and 100% success rate were totally unbelievable. How could a factionless doctor be so dominating? Bien Yaoquan was totally stupefied. This blow was extremely harsh for someone who was prideful. Miracle Dr. Wang from Rivertown must have met a good opportunity. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to achieve such a formidable stage at age 20 with proficient medical skills and art of refining elixir pills. An inborn expert could not help but exclaim, "A miracle doctor who is only 20, ranked 9th on the chart. This is already shocking. Who could have thought that he is such a powerful alchemist? Miracle Dr. Wang has unlimited potential. He's great. No wonder I heard that Miracle Dr. Wang is strong in his networking, with several inborn experts helping him. He's actually a powerful alchemist." A few experts were discussing in whispers. Some of the surrounding young men and middle-aged men were looking at Wang Xian with faces full of envy. How could someone be so outstanding? Good opportunity. The elder from Sacred Followers Guild stood by the side with radiance flickering in his eyes. He squinted his eyes slightly with a glimmer of greed flashing in them. At the same time, a few experts were deep in thought. Young master. The poison duo walked to Bien Yaoquan and called out softly. The three of them headed out. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Wang Xian, a rogue cultivator, did not know that people speculated he could have obtained a great possession because of his performance just now. Somebody was up to no good now. Phew, it's all done. Wang Xian had finally refined a total of 330 pills at night. There was an extra 30 pills. Chief, here. Wang Xian walked out of the tent and saw the middle-aged man in uniform waiting for him at the door. He smiled and tossed the bag of elixir pills to him. Here's 300 of them. I'm keeping some of the extras, Wang Xian said with a smile. Her. The middle-aged man was slightly taken aback, but soon he was thrilled. He cast a glance at the elixir pills in the bottle with excitement in his eyes. 300 was already beyond our expectations. We would be satisfied even if you gave us 200. The middle-aged man in uniform smiled, but he was hesitant as he looked at Wang Xian. With a grin, he asked, Miracle Dr. Wang, are you interested in joining us? I guarantee you that the remuneration would be more than you expect. Sorry, I'm used to being solo. Wang Xian shook his head and declined. If that's the case, we'll not insist on it. I hope we can work together again in the future. The middle-aged man in uniform stretched out his hand and replied with a smile. Sure. Wang Xian beamed. Working with the state would benefit him greatly after all. Miracle Dr. Wang, let me take you to your resting place. We'll be entering the zone tomorrow morning, said the middle-aged man in uniform as he looked ahead. The pitch-black darkness in front looked like an enormous devouring monster at night. Wang Xian cast his gaze and narrowed his eyes slightly. When he was back in the tent that he was residing place, someone sent food over. Not long later, Sun Lingxiu and Miracle Dr. Bloodman walked in. Xiao Xian. Sun Lingxiu sat beside him with a beaming face. How did it go, Lingxiu? Did you make any discoveries? Asked Wang Xian to Sun Lingxiu. No, I don't specialize in this. Sun Lingxiu shook her head slowly as she turned to Miracle Dr. Bloodman. Master, there is an appalling bloodline power in them. We must watch our back tomorrow. Miracle Dr. Bloodman answered with a stern-looking face. Upon hearing his words, Wang Xian was even more certain about his speculation. Yes, let's be careful. There must be some domineering things inside. But of course there's a chance that it's dead. Otherwise, the other creatures would not have mutated. Wang Xian guessed that the domineering existence with a daunting bloodline must be dead. When other living creatures fed on its body and blood, they mutated and evolved. Okay. Sun Lingxiu nodded. They went on to chat a little longer before they turned in. Wang Xian walked out of his tent and gazed ahead. He hesitated and called off the idea of scouting alone at night. The next morning, everyone gathered at the same place after breakfast. Approximately 150 people gathered with 20 inborn experts, the weakest ones being level 8 martial artists. Today we're going to investigate the situation inside the zone. It's going to be dangerous. Please watch out. Before that, please have a blood cleansing pill each. The middle-aged man in uniform from yesterday stood in front of the group and spoke while looking at them. They nodded and took a blood cleansing pill from the soldiers. Glances were cast at Wang Xian as he had really refined 300 elixir pills. His art of refining elixir pills was formidable. Let's go. If you meet any danger, stay united and work together, said the middle-aged man in uniform as he led the group inside. The group followed behind him, passing through the electric fence. They came to flat land at this time. One could look far in just a glance with houses vaguely visible in the distance. There was nothing unusual around the grassland. Everyone was looking around without looking tense. Given the strength of this group, it was almost comparable to a weak, sacred sect. Hence, it was a piece of cake having to deal with some level 7 or 8 creatures. The group sped up as they continued walking. According to the investigation done by the middle-aged man in uniform, those mutated creatures were likely coming from the Yellow River. The first thing they had to do was to check the tributary, spanning 10 kilometers long and 1,000 meters wide. The soil was not swampy, but the grass was almost up to their knees. "Watch your step!" an inborn expert suddenly shouted. All of them were surprised to see a daunting leech heading toward a miracle doctor for a bite with its enormous teeth. Swish! A sword came in a flash, slaying the leech and cutting it in half. Be careful. They can remain hidden in the grass very well with their small sizes. those who are not inborn experts, yet must pay extra attention. The middle-aged man in uniform made a reminder again. In the past, he had already lost thousands of soldiers in this patch of grassland. However, it should be slightly easier with all these experts around. Croak! Just then, a rapid and coarse croaking sound was heard from far off, stunning everyone. Chapter 342. Blood-Sucking Toad. The sudden sound emanated from afar and surprised the crowd. The rapid and coarse sound wasn't that of a frog. Instead, the sound was low and deep. The sound emanated from at least several thousand meters away. What's making that sound? Everyone was taken aback as they looked towards the source. This sound had made their hearts skip a beat. Several meters ahead of them was a branch of the Yellow River. For a sound to come from such a far place, the one making it would definitely be horrifying. Are there other mutated creatures? The expression on the middle-aged man in military uniform had stiffened with dismay. He looked ahead with his deep eyes before turning back and speaking to the crowd. There might be unknown and powerful creatures ahead. Everyone, please be careful. The crowd kept their nonchalant attitude in check and started observing their surroundings attentively. Let's go. Let's quicken our pace. As the middle-aged man in military uniform finished his words, he dashed ahead at astonishing speed. The crowd followed closely behind and headed towards the Yellow River. Bam! 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 The crowd was really fast. The leeches and ants along the way were alarmed and attacked them directly. However, the fighting capacity of the crowd was incredible. As they waved their weapons and shot out sword rays, these leeches and ants were split into halves. These mutated creatures are everywhere, said Sun Lingxiu. The crowd had encountered over 50 mutated animals while dashing for 1,000 meters. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked to the side. There was a dilapidated village beside him with roughly over 200 houses. At this moment, there were some dull red blood stains all around this small village. There were no longer any humans within the village. What was left were corpses of some reared animals. We are approaching the Yellow River. Everyone, please be careful. The middle-aged man in military uniform reminded the crowd. The crowd slowed down and looked towards the Yellow River ahead of them. Screech, screech, screech. The crowd gathered at a dilapidated house with an area marked out for rearing pigs. Suddenly, all of them picked up dense, buzzing sounds. They were shocked and instantly looked to their side. Those are mutated mosquitoes. Be careful. An inborn expert turned over and shouted with a serious expression. Phut! There are so many of them. Everyone was alarmed. Each mosquito was the size of a human's palm. As they charged out of the house by the thousands, the razor-sharp edge of their mouths had a strong scent of blood. At least 1,000 mutated mosquitoes were attacking them. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and looked at the nest of mutated mosquitoes before him. They were known as cadaveric mosquitoes. Among them, there was a level 10 existence. On top of that, there were many level 9 cadaveric mosquitoes. Be careful. Some of these mutated mosquitoes are as strong as an inborn realm expert. An inborn expert shouted and reminded the crowd. He was shocked to hear a clang collision sound when he slashed his sharp sword at a cadaveric mosquito. Rumble. The group of inborn experts immediately gave their all and did not hold back their strength. Aurora. Blood mist. Sun Lingxiu struck at the same time as miracle Dr. Bloodman flashes of brilliance cut through the skies, illuminating the day even more brightly. As for miracle Dr. Bloodman, he shrouded over 100 mutated mosquitoes with his blood mist. Soon these cadaveric mosquitoes fell to the ground like raindrops. So strong! When the surrounding crowd saw Sun Lingxiu and miracle Dr. Bloodman's attacks, their pupils constricted unconsciously. The range of their attack had eliminated 1/5 of the total cadaveric mosquitoes. The group of miracle doctors also looked at them in awe. As miracle doctors, their battle capacities were much weaker than ordinary inborn experts. However, the holy goddess and miracle Dr. Bloodman were completely different from them. Their fighting capacities were off the charts. The middle-aged man in military uniform also took a glance at Sun Ling Xiu and miracle Dr. Bloodman, after which he shouted, "Go!" The crowd was on high alert. Among the 1,000 mutated mosquitoes they had encountered previously, there was an inborn level mosquito. Logically, the center of the source of the virus might have even stronger animals. It was especially so considering the sound they had heard previously that made their hearts skip a beat. The crowd approached the Yellow River carefully. The water of the river was incomparably muddy. There was no way one could see the situation below the surface. On the surface, there were floating corpses of ducks and birds. As this wasn't the main channel of the Yellow River, the river water wasn't flowing. Faint ripples were formed only when faint wind disturbed the calm surface. The breadth of this segment of the Yellow River was over 1,000 meters. It wasn't particularly broad, but wasn't narrow either. The crowd arrived at the edge and carefully observed their surroundings. It would seem that the sound from before should have originated from this vicinity, an inborn expert commented with a solemn expression. "Let me take a look." Poison Doc Yen Chi moved his arm and a green poisonous snake dived into the Yellow River. He still had a black venomous snake with him. Clearly, he wasn't willing to risk the black snake. "Let me take a look at the river water." An old man waved his hand and a ball of water flew towards him. The center of this part of the Yellow River can reach a depth of 15. It is relatively deep compared to other areas, the middle-aged man in military uniform explained to the group. Wang Xian squinted his eyes. A blue and red light flashed in his eyes. In his view, the muddy water gradually turned transparent. The situation under the surface gradually appeared in his sight. There aren't any fish at all, not even one. Wang Xian was slightly surprised that there wasn't even a living fish in the huge and broad Yellow River. "That is a cadaveric leech." Wang Xian turned his head around and looked to his right. A palm-sized leech was resting at the bottom of the riverbed. Suddenly, that cadaveric leech suddenly accelerated and attacked towards the direction of that green snake. SSS. The green snake was clearly not any ordinary snake. Sensing the cadaveric leech, it immediately lifted its head and stared coldly at it. Swish! The cadaveric leech charged furiously ahead, but the green snake wasn't flustered. It opened its mouth and revealed 2 huge fangs which it sank into the leech, after which it swam rapidly toward shore. Croak! At this moment, a water bubble appeared before the snake. A huge and dreadful toad-like creature was swimming towards the green snake at an astonishing speed. The toad-like creature extended its tongue. On its tongue, there were various suction cups that looked frightening. The green snake didn't even have the time to retaliate when it was wrapped by the tongue, after which the dense suction cups instantly started wiggling. At a pace visible to the human eye, the green snake was sucked dry. As for that cadaveric leech, it managed to survive and fled rapidly. The commotion within the water also attracted the attention of the crowd on shore as they looked on. Splash! At this instant, the toad-like creature appeared to have picked up the scent of the humans on shore and jumped out of the water directly. Bam! A 1-meter, huge, horrifying mutated creature stared coldly at the crowd. It had dense, bulging meatballs all around its body and was dull yellow in color. Subsequently, it opened its mouth and revealed its horrifying tongue, which it stuck out and pointed to the sky. Chapter 343, Corpse 1. A mutated toad. Everyone was shocked by the toad that suddenly leaped out. They staggered 2 steps back as they stared at the mutated toad with vigilance. Croak! The toad let out a low cry with its tongue moving slowly while it glared coldly at the group of people. Cadaveric toad, level 10, unable to extract dragon energy. A message popped out in Wang Xian's mind. But he realized that this toad was much stronger than those usual level 10 creatures. In particular, the long tongue in its mouth looked terrifying. A toad that actually grew to a meter in size? What is this? What caused such a horrible transformation in them? A middle-aged man was observing the toad. "Kill it and dissect it!" A miracle doctor holding on to his silver needles announced to the group. Croak! Just when that miracle doctor finished his sentence, the mutated toad moved. As its 4 limbs moved, it charged at one inborn expert at a terrifying speed. Beast, go to hell! Those inborn experts standing in front were looking cold as they wielded their swords at it. 4 inborn experts struck immediately at it, while the rest observed the enormous mutated toad from behind. Bam, bam, bam. Oh no! As the sharp radiance from the sword struck the body of the mutated toad, not a single trace was left on it. This caused a drastic change in the expressions of 4 inborn experts who were attacking it. Hiss! At this moment, that mutated toad suddenly extended its tongue from 2 meters to 5 meters long. The overcrowding mouth parts were horrifying. Poof! The inborn expert was appalled when the toad struck at him. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, defending himself with mighty strength. However, his defense energy was penetrated just like a piece of paper. At a speed visible to the naked eye, that inborn expert's body shrunk. Croak! That terrifying toad was enjoying itself. Oh no, that toad has reached half-step to Dan realm. The middle-aged man in military uniform was horrified. He quickly waved the saber in his hand, aiming at the tongue of that mutated toad. Half-step to Dan realm. All the inborn experts were taken aback by horror. Those experts who had not reached the inborn realm quickly stepped back. Let's strike together. The middle-aged man in the military uniform shouted immediately when his saber bounced off as soon as it hit the mutated toad's tongue. Attack! All the inborn experts were surprised by the power of the mutated toad, which had instantly killed an inborn expert. An inborn expert had been killed in a split second with no hope for treatment. Boom, boom. The sharp radiance from the swords, fiery whirling weapons, and powerful strikes bombarded the mutated toad. Croak! Yet it ignored all the attacks, assaulting only the middle-aged man in the military uniform. Boom, boom. All their strikes left only slight traces on the mutated toad. What a dominating defense! The surrounding people were horrified. A film of cold sweat was covering the forehead of the middle-aged man in military uniform. Azure Dragon's saber slay. With both his hands gripping his saber, he blasted a full-blown attack at the mutated toad. Bam! The razor-sharp saber, accompanied by energy of the gold summit, only left a half-meter-long blood trace on the toad. Hiss! The middle-aged man in military uniform leaped and staggered back as he gasped. Level 8 weapon, and my full-force attack could only leave a slight injury on the mutated toad. What a domineering defense it has. Everyone watch out. Just now, when my sword hit that fellow's eyes, it only left a faint trace on it. The defense is simply appalling. There's no weakness at all. Another inborn expert stared at the mutated toad with a sword in his hand, looking nasty. What a strong mutated toad. Bien Yaoquan and the rest of the young and middle-aged men who were not inborns, yet were horrified as a score of inborn experts was staring at the mutated toad. We'll trap it. The rest attack. At this time, Sun Lingxiu squinted her eyes as she lifted her palm slowly. Ack, let's kill this thing off now. At the same time, Miracle Dr. Bloodman stepped forward with streams of blood flowing down from his feet, spreading rapidly towards the mutated toad. Holy Light Trap. Blood confinement. After the soft groan from Sun Lingxiu, Miracle Dr. Bloodman followed suit with a bellow. White-colored lights crossed each other. crimson bloody aura attached to each light ray, trapping the mutated toad in a red-colored cage. Bam! The mutated toad seemed to have no other emotions except banging itself into the cage. However, the double-binding powers caused the toad to bounce off from the cage. Attack! The surrounding 20 inborn experts grabbed their weapons and wielded them at that mutated toad with strong forces. Boom, boom. Every attack the inborn experts made seemed to be firing a violent explosion. Bam, bam, bam. Yet, the mutated toad did not seem to feel the pain as it knocked itself against the surrounding trap violently. Oh no, the trap can't hold any longer. At this time, Sun Lingxiu had a change in her expression. The brightness around her intensified as she looked even more like the goddess of light. Its defense is too domineering. More than a score of inborn experts could not inflict serious injuries on it. Those people who were not inborns were appalled when they saw the light injuries on the mutated toad's body. Prison duo, take my level 9 weapon, sky-splitting blade. When Bien Yaoquan saw this from the back, he swung his arm, and a half-meter-long weapon appeared in his hand. He yelled at Old Du and flung it. Level 9 weapon. The surrounding inborn experts had a slight change in their expressions. Some of them looked over fervently. Level 9 weapons were incredibly sharp and fearsome. Sure. Old Du revealed a smile as he reached out his arm and took the sky-splitting blade. Drawing a sword radiance that was a few meters long, he encompassed himself in poisonous smoke with a swift move. Swish! As the level 9 weapon cut across, it left an inch-deep wound on the mutated toad. Such a sharp weapon. That's a formidable level 9 weapon. Everyone was astonished by the wound left on the mutated toad, which was deep into the bones. Awesome. He carried a level 9 weapon around with him. Is this how affluent and resourceful Medical Saint Sect is? Young Master Bien's self-defense weapon is actually a level 9 weapon. I really envy him. Even for weapons that are seemingly like decor, his weapon is level 9. We really can't compare with him at all. The rest of the crowd slightly lifted their chins and looked at Bien Yaoquan, whose face was full of smiles. They were all envious of him. Their backings might have been strong, but they were nowhere near this young Master Bien. Chapter 344, Corpse 2. A level 9 weapon is incomparably valuable. Even an inborn expert would find it hard to obtain a level 9 weapon. Bien Yaoquan remarked proudly. Having a level 9 weapon was also an exemplification of one's standing. He had something that even inborn experts didn't have. I'll use my weapon to slay this creature. He looked emotionlessly at the ongoing battle as his lips curved into a smile. It's going to get away. Old Du, we will pin it down while you attack it with the level 9 weapon. The middle-aged man in military uniform shouted loudly after seeing the mutated toad breaking out of the restraints of the cage. Leave it to me. I'll definitely kill it within 10 strikes. Old Du held the sky-splitting blade in his hand and spoke confidently. Holy Goddess, be careful! At this moment, the mutated toad charged toward Sun Lingxiu. It shot its horrifying tongue at her while fixing its gaze on her. Sun Lingxiu was slightly surprised and instantly emitted dazzling light. Swish! However, a long sword with a golden shine slashed towards the mutated toad while it was in midair. Before the sword reached it, the glow of the sword had slashed it. All the surrounding experts with weapons in their hands could feel the resonance from their weapons. Bam! To the astonishment of the crowd, the golden long sword cut into the head of the toad directly. The mutated toad fell to the ground. What? This. The surrounding experts who were getting ready to attack were taken aback and shocked. That golden longsword was actually able to cut into the body of the toad. How could that be possible? Despite having it surrounded and attacking it for some time, they were only able to inflict minor injuries to it previously. Not bad, it's pretty sharp. A peal of light-hearted laughter resounded, and the surrounding crowd instantly looked over. Sensing the crowd's attention, Wang Xian smiled and pointed the scabbard of Jean Lu ahead of him. Bzz, bzz. Jean Lu, which had pierced the mutated toad, vibrated violently. After emitting a crisp, buzzing sound, it flew back into the scabbard. No blood was left on the razor-sharp blade at all. That is an inborn spiritual weapon. Seeing this, an inborn expert couldn't hold back and exclaimed. He stared intensely at Jean Lu in Wang Xian's hand. Inborn spiritual weapon. Oh gosh, it's an inborn spiritual weapon. The surrounding crowd was greatly shocked. Inborn spiritual weapons were weapons often regarded as only appearing in legends. Even though they were inborn experts, they rarely saw one, let alone possessing one. Blacksmith and alchemist were both occupations taken up by few. The most powerful and known Grandmaster Blacksmith was only level 7. He could forge level 7 weapons. However, that's still a huge difference from an inborn spiritual weapon. An inborn spiritual weapon could be the treasure of the clan for a sacred clan or sect. The reason why they were so horrifying was because they possessed spirituality and the ability to suppress ordinary weapons. If a half-step to inborn expert used an inborn spiritual weapon, he could even slay an inborn expert. An inborn spiritual weapon was incomparably sharp and could easily break through the defense of an inborn expert. Around Wang Xian, most of the inborn experts had level 6 or 7 weapons. A few had level 8 weapons, while only Bian Yaoquan had the level 9 sky-splitting blade. A level 9 weapon had already greatly surprised them, let alone an inborn spiritual weapon. One should note that the inborn level Haozhong had previously surprised the entire sacred sect, Heavenly Sound Sect. This is Jean Lu. Wang Xian could tell everyone's attentions were fixed on the long sword in his hand. He smiled, lifted it, and explained to the crowd. Jean Lu? It's actually Jean Lu, the top 3 weapon in history. Inborn spiritual weapon, Jean Lu. How incredible! Our combined all-out attack only managed to inflict light injuries on the mutated toad. Yet, Jean Lu killed it directly. Jean Lu is so much stronger than level 9 weapons. Before the inborn spiritual weapon, everything else is just scraps. Even a level 9 weapon couldn't possibly be a match for it. The surrounding inborn experts exclaimed in shock as they turned and looked at the dead, mutated toad. Behind them, the rest of the crowd stared fervently at Jean Lu. They were shocked and dumbfounded. Inborn spiritual weapon. Miracle Dr. Wang's weapon is the inborn spiritual weapon, Jean Lu. Oh gosh, I thought young Master Bian was incredible to possess a level 9 weapon. Who would have expected the sword of Miracle Dr. Wang to be an inborn spiritual weapon? Just a simple wave of his hand and the inborn spiritual weapon killed the mutated toad. What horrifying sharpness! I thought that the sword was just for decoration. I would have never expected. It would appear that Miracle Dr. Wang actually has deeper pockets than young Master Bian, powerful medical skills, an alchemist, and now his weapon. The strength that Miracle Dr. Wang from Rivertown had demonstrated over the past 2 days was too shocking. Even the core disciple of a sacred sect with hundreds of years of history couldn't be compared with him. Bian Yaoquan's jaw had dropped and he was in disbelief, following which his expression turned gloomy as he stared bitterly at Wang Xian. He clenched his fist tightly. This rascal was going against him in all ways. Murderous intent gleamed in Bian Yaoquan's eyes. The surrounding inborn experts consciously and subconsciously looked at Jean Lu fervently. Let me take a look at that mutated toad to see why it has such a powerful defense. A miracle doctor walked to the mutated toad and started examining it. Be careful, everyone. This matter is more severe than a few days ago. Even half-step to Dan realm creatures have appeared. The middle-aged man in military uniform spoke with a solemn expression. Now that such a horrifying creature had appeared, would there be stronger creatures? If there was, he could only invite the lousest of those sacred clans. He heaved a sigh and ordered his men to handle the corpses of the inborn experts, after which he looked to the muddy Yellow River. Wang Xian was also looking into the Yellow River. He wasn't concerned that he had exposed his inborn spiritual weapon, Zhanlu. If the mutated toad had not attacked Sun Lingxiu previously, Wang Xian wouldn't have struck. Everyone's attention was on the inborn spiritual weapon, Zhanlu. No one actually noticed Wang Xian's strength level. Wang Xian glanced at the corpse of the cadaveric toad before looking into the depths of the Yellow River. The breadth of 1,000 meters was all within Wang Xian's sight as he used his piercing eye. He walked to the edge of the shore and looked right down. Sun Lingxiu looked at Wang Xian and came to him. Miracle Dr. Bloodman followed closely behind her. Miracle Dr. Wang, be careful! Seeing that Wang Xian was about to break away from the group, the middle-aged man in military uniform reminded him. Wang Xian turned to him and nodded his head. A blue and red glow flashed in his eyes as he continued looking into the river. After walking along the riverbank for over 2,000 meters, he stopped in his tracks and looked in shock ahead of him. That is, Wang Xian stared intensely at the middle of the river. A group of mutated creatures had gathered there. There were cadaveric mosquitoes, cadaveric leech, and cadaveric ants that were 1/2 meter in size. There were also toads that were 2 meters in size. A total of approximately 30 horrifying creatures lay there and seemed to be protecting something in the middle of the river. Chapter 345, Corpse 3. Wang Xian was slightly taken aback as he saw something in the middle of the Yellow River. He pondered hard. Those terrifying creatures were far more domineering than those mutated beings they had met just now. The 1-meter cadaveric toad just now possessed a strength of half-step to Dan realm. Yet the 2-meter cadaveric toad before him now had already hit Dan realm. 2 meters in size with faint grayish aura circling around its mustard body, exhibiting domineering demeanor. The rest of the cadaveric ants around were also giving off the same domineering vibe. They quietly lay in a circle. More than a score of level 11 appalling creatures are keeping guard over something in the middle. What's that? Wang Xian was stunned as he looked around. Some of the low-level cadaveric ants and cadaveric toads were loitering around without a mind of their own. Just then he saw cadaveric leeches and cadaveric mosquitoes rapidly swimming towards the opening of the Yellow River. There were approximately 20 to 30 of them, all looking bloated as they swam towards the cadaveric ants and cadaveric mosquitoes. Croak! They spat out traces of thick and crimson blood that flowed towards the center location. This is... Wang Xian stared with his eyes wide open, looking shocked. They were feeding. Those creatures were feeding on the blood they sucked up from the thing in the center. Is that the terrifying existence? Is it nursing itself? With the fresh blood from other living beings? Wang Xian was amazed. If he guessed correctly, this creature was simply too scary as it could produce numbers of level 11 creatures even when it was injured. Miracle, Dr. Wang. Did you make any discoveries? At the same time, there were dozens of people approaching from behind, asking him with smiling faces. Yanqi was right in the middle, accompanied by some miracle doctors and inborn experts. No. Wang Xian shook his head. He did not reveal to them what he saw, as he knew this bunch of people was not good enough to deal with these appalling creatures. The water in the Yellow River is not contaminated at all. According to what we found out, these creatures should be coming from within the river. As Yanqi spoke, he cast a glance towards the Yellow River by the side. But the water is too murky. My green snake got devoured after entering it. It's too quiet over here without any life forms. Yes, there are no life forms here. Not a single fish in such a huge riverbank. Another miracle, Doctor exclaimed. What is the military army going to do with this place? asked Wang Xian to Yen, she with some curiosity. They'll kill all the mutated creatures on the grassland before cordoning off the entire riverbank. As Yen, she answered, he looked over in another direction where armed soldiers were rushing in. The group of inborn experts followed the soldiers around, helping them to eliminate those mutated creatures. Wang Xian looked over as they combed the area inch by inch, wiping out all the mutated creatures. Then they proceeded to search the Yellow River. However, it was not easy due to the murkiness of the water. Most importantly, they would sound off those group of terrifying creatures if they ventured into the river. It would be a severe loss until then. Wang Xian frowned slightly as the group of people began searching along the riverbank. Just before the sun was setting, the group finished walking around the tributary. Wang Xian had a better idea about the creatures within the river. "I wonder if you have any findings?" the middle-aged man in military uniform asked all the miracle doctors at night. According to our understanding, the mutated ants have evolved with special organs that allow them to swim freely in the water. The source of the problem is almost certainly coming from the Yellow River. The group of miracle doctors shook their heads as not much information had been obtained. The middle-aged man in military uniform knit his eyebrows slightly and made a decision. "Tomorrow we'll check the Yellow River, after which everyone will receive a handsome reward for it." Miracle doctors and inborn experts nodded their heads. Everyone witnessed how dangerous it was at the tributary of the Yellow River, especially when the half-step to Dan realm creature slew an inborn expert. Without remuneration, many inborn experts would not want to risk their lives. After dinner, everyone went back to their tents for a rest. Wang Xian stood outside of his own tent and gazed in the direction of the Yellow River. Thoughts were flying around in his head. There were no stars nor moon in the sky. The weather was somber, and rain was expected tomorrow. At 12 midnight, a figure disappeared from the temporary base. It flitted like a phantom towards the tributary of the Yellow River. No one noticed that figure, even though experts were all around. "Let's check it out." Wang Xian decided to explore the Yellow River. He'd had his apprehensions in the day, and therefore did not rise above the Yellow River in the air. With a swift move, he flew 1,000 meters high and looked down at the river. His vision from piercing eyes was blocked by a layer of dark energy. In the air, Wang Xian had a slightly different expression from before as he fixed his eyes on something below. The grayish energy was similar to the water in the Yellow River, blocking his piercing eyes' vision in the air. However, those level 11 mutated creatures were seen clearly in the surroundings. There are more than a score of level 11 creatures. Unless I turn into a dragon, I won't be a match to them. With some hesitation, Wang Xian made a quick move and dived into the Yellow River. Splash! When Wang Xian entered the water, there were no water ripples at all. With a thought, he allowed the murky water stream to encompass him completely. With a swift movement, Wang Xian approached that location. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 100 meters. Soon, Wang Xian was 50 meters away from the mutated creatures. Looking ahead, Wang Xian stared with eyes agape. A 3-meter, human-like being was quietly lying in the middle among the mutated creatures. His body was giving off a disorderly vibe, but the energy it possessed trembled Wang Xian. Blood, suppression from the blood. Wang Xian was staring with his eyes wide. The being that was lying without a sound in the water seemed to be suppressing Wang Xian. Wang Xian may have been weak now, but it was horrifying to find something that could suppress his divine dragon's bloodline. The bloodline of this being is not any inferior to mine. Perhaps it's also a supreme bloodline. It was an eye-opener to Wang Xian, as there were less than 5 bloodlines that could be on par with that of the divine dragon. Before his eyes now he had met one on earth. He has no breadth, but his blood is still alive. He has a chance of resurrecting. Wang Xian recalled that if he mastered the 7th divine dragon transformation, He could be revived with a drop of blood. Terrifying. Chapter 346. Ancient God Kuinbreeder. The lingering will of the blood in the corpse is actually able to control the surrounding creatures instinctively. In this process, it mutates the surrounding creatures to protect itself. At the same time, it is absorbing the fresh blood of these creatures to revive itself. What a horrifying ability! Wang Xian couldn't believe what he was seeing. He stared blankly at the corpse, and his expression was changing violently. There are lots of living creatures in the Yellow River. However, this corpse only controlled those smaller creatures like ants, mosquitoes, and leeches. Why didn't it control the fish, especially those bigger ones which are around a meter? Even till now, the biggest living creature it controlled was a toad the size of a palm. It's because... He squinted his eyes and a thought struck him. It's because this corpse is already dead. Even though there is lingering vitality in its blood, the blood does not have sufficient energy. Thus, it can only control those smaller creatures like ants and mosquitoes. Perhaps the creatures it controlled have grown stronger recently, and thus it is now able to control toads. In reality, this corpse does not possess any combat capacity. It instructed some of the creatures to go search for fresh blood required for its revival, while leaving behind the strongest creatures to protect itself from being discovered by other living creatures. Once it is discovered, the chances of it reviving would be close to zero. At the thought of this, Wang Xian's eyes beamed. This was an existence with a bloodline that ranked in the upper echelons throughout the universe. It was also a horrifying existence that could match a divine dragon. The corpse before Wang Xian currently was a huge trove of treasure. Wang Xian's eyes were beaming. From this corpse, he gradually emitted the might and aura of a divine dragon. Pissed. Croak. At this instant, those level 11 mutated creatures that were surrounding the corpse noticed Wang Xian and stared at him immediately. Their gazes were cold without any emotions. Roar! A soft growl of the dragon emanated suddenly. Splash! A 5-colored divine dragon appeared in the Yellow River. This location was just slightly over 10 meters deep. For Wang Xian's huge body that spanned approximately 7 meters, it was just like a small pond. Croak! Buzz, buzz, buzz! Just as Wang Xian turned into a divine dragon, those 20-odd formidable mutated creatures charged towards Wang Xian without hesitation. These creatures couldn't feel the slightest fear or pain. They opened their mouths, revealed their sharp teeth, and attempted to sink these teeth into Wang Xian. Their speed was astonishingly fast, and the sharpness of their teeth was comparable to level 9 weapons. Die! Wang Xian saw 20-odd creatures charging towards him and swung his razor-sharp claws at them in response. SSS. Horrifying and densely packed streams of metal attribute energies instantly covered an area of over 10 meters before him. Boom, boom. Horrifying clashes rang. These mutated creatures did not have any elemental attributes. However, they did have incomparably tough defenses. Unfortunately for them, they were facing Wang Xian this time. Wang Xian's current strength level could match a level 12 creature. Razor-sharp streams of metal energies fell on more than 10 creatures, leaving behind long wounds. Even the sharpness of the inborn spiritual weapon, Zhanlu, couldn't match the dragon claws of Wang Xian. As the pinnacle existence in the entire universe, the toughness of the body of the divine dragon would be among the top 3. Together with their elemental attribute attacks, they remained the pinnacle of all existences in the universe. Divine Dragon Tail Whip. Wang Xian controlled his tail and swept towards the mutated creatures. Boom, boom. Sounds of explosions propagated throughout the surrounding area spanning 10 kilometers. What's that sound? What's that sound? I faintly heard a roar. Is there any explosion in the vicinity? At the temporary base 4 kilometers away from the Yellow River, the experts and miracle doctors walked out of the tent and exclaimed in shock. Croak, croak, croak. Buzz, buzz, buzz. SSS, SSS, SSS. At this instant, a deafening sound that sent chills down their spines rang loudly. Everyone could hear it clearly. What is that sound? It must be from the mutated creatures. The deep croak was from the mutated toad. However, it's more terrifying than the one we heard in the day. The other sounds were from the mutated mosquitoes and leeches. Oh gosh, what happened? Hearing the deafening and rapid cries of these creatures, the group of inborn experts was startled. Ka ka ka. At this moment, all the lights in the temporary base lit up, illuminating the surroundings and turning it as bright as the day. The soldiers walked out of their tents, and the middle-aged man in military uniform leapt onto biggest tent and stared in the direction of the Yellow River. The group of inborn experts exchanged glances before levitating into the air and looking in the direction of the Yellow River. Boom! At this instant, they heard a loud explosion that resembled something smashing onto the surface of the river. Roar! A frightening roar erupted once again. Looking from afar, they could vaguely see a huge tail sweeping forward. What a terrifying aura! I could even feel the threat of death from this distance. What's happening at the Yellow River to cause such horrifying explosions? Moreover, what kind of creature is making that frightening roar? The group of inborn experts widened their eyes as they looked in the direction of the Yellow River in shock. Feeling the dominating powers, their hearts were filled with horror. There is a powerful creature fighting there. It's so strong that it appears unbelievable. The middle-aged man in military uniform stared in that direction, and his body was shivering a little in awe. The cries of the mutated creatures and the mighty roar of the powerful existence had both frightened the group. They were no match for the creatures in the Yellow River. Fight! The crowd swallowed their saliva. It was especially so for those who had not reached the inborn realm. Every sound that came from there filled them with horror. They were certain that if they were any closer, they couldn't even stand. To them, the creatures there were equivalent to gods and demons. Could it be that the creature that caused the mutation is fighting other living creatures? The surrounding crowd conjectured. At this very moment, Wang Xian, who was in the Yellow River, released a green dragon ball from his mouth. The surrounding seagrass grew rapidly to the thickness of a human's arm with thorns. Subsequently, these seagrasses wrapped towards all the mutated creatures. Wang Xian extended his dragon claws and gripped the level 11 cadaveric toad tightly. Bam! The cadaveric toad was squashed into a heap of flesh instantly. Despite having an incredible defense, it was still killed instantly. Around Wang Xian, the mutated creatures were all trapped by the thorny seagrasses. The creatures struggled vigorously and were starting to break out of the hold of these seagrasses. Just a group of meager level 11 creatures. Die! Wang Xian looked up and opened his mouth widely as the river waters retreated quickly from Wang Xian. Lava-like flames shrouded towards and covered these mutated creatures. Chapter 347 Ancient God Kuan Breeder 2. Boom, boom, boom. As the flames ascended, they lit up the areas above. The sky above the Yellow River was now covered in flames as though it was raging in a firestorm. It was clearly visible even to those situated more than a dozen kilometers away. Within the temporary base, the crowd of experts looked on in shock at the burning flames. The monstrous fire resembled those started by fallen meteorites which crashed into Earth. Despite being several kilometers away, they could still feel a surge of heat waves coming at them. Under the lights of the flames, they could somewhat make out a mammoth figure as it flashed past. What was that? A voice asked. These destructive flames are so terrifying. Should they land on us, they're more than enough to melt our bodies directly. Another said, shivering, "What exactly is that battling creature? How is it so powerful? Since when did such a menacing creature exist within the Yellow River?" The third questioned. Dumbfounded, the crowd of inborn experts looked on with heavy hearts. Needless to say, the rest who had yet to attain the inborn realm status were overwhelmed by more shock as their legs nearly turned to jelly. "Everyone, let's take a look over there," the middle-aged man in military uniform said in hesitation as he surveyed the crowd, while his face twitched with mixed emotions. "This," the inborn experts replied with flickering eyes. "Given our combat abilities, we would be lucky if that powerful creature ignores us as we approach. But what if it attacks us?" An inborn expert trailed off in a low tone. Even though he had left his sentence hanging, his intentions were already clear. "Everyone here knows the creature over there. It's not a little tamed animal. Aren't we courting doom by going over?" Another inborn expert asked blatantly. To ask them over for viewing right now? How could that possibly be? They were never going over, even if one threatened to kill them. For such risky behavior, no amount would convince them to go over. Meanwhile, the young militant stood at a side, taking everything in silently as his face turned glum. He dared not to risk it. Each of their defensive powers is insane. Wang Xian exclaimed in shock. He was in the Yellow River, facing more than a dozen creatures. In spite of their now charred bodies, they continued to eye Wang Xian emotionlessly. Their defensive powers were exceptional, even in the face of Wang Xian, whose combat abilities were a level higher. Slaying them would require use of the dragon claws, and even then this would remain a difficult task. "You beasts! How dare you stop me?" Wang Xian snapped. In a split second, Wang Xian transformed into a dragon covered in a body of gold. A golden dragon of the metal element was most adept at killing. "Kill!" Wang Xian shouted as he charged ahead and lunged onto the creatures which feared no death. Two enormous dragon claws swung forward and tore mercilessly. Zap, zap, zap. In the air were sounds of tearing made by metallic materials. Within a radius of 500 meters, bouts of metallic energy surged through the region and penetrated through all creatures standing in its path. Having been seriously injured previously, the dozen or so mutated creatures eventually disintegrated into pieces and fell into the river. Phew, that was troublesome. Wang Xian panted. He looked at the dismembered body parts which drifted amidst the waters before turning his dragon head towards the center of the river. He stared coolly at the corpse, which measured up to 3 meters. While it had a human form, its body was entirely mustard in color, coupled with a grisly facial appearance. As opposed to humans, it had neither a nose nor a mouth, although it also possessed a pair of eyes and ears. On the top of its head, there were 2 relatively short horns the color of mustard. Wang Xian did not approach it, nor did he want to do it so flippantly. After all, it was a terrifying creature, hence caution must be exercised at all times. The corpse lay silently in the water, as though it was in an individual space of its own. A spot on its thigh which was missing some flesh and blood revealed the ivory bones within. Ancient God Kuan Breeder, level unknown. Unable to extract dragon energy. The ancient God Kuan Breeder? Wang Xian said, stunned after reading the message, his face filled with shock. The ancient God Kuan Breeder. To think it's the ancient God Kuan Breeder. Wang Xian gasped with his mouth gaping open as his eyes flooded with bloodthirst. This was a murderous intent which stemmed from his bloodline. Humph. Wang Xian snorted with a heavy look. He calmed himself down the soonest he could, while information on the ancient god Kuan Breeder appeared in his head. As the divine dragon transformation read, it was the only pinnacle existence to have ever been recorded, and also the only arch-nemesis of the divine dragon to have ever existed. That said, based on the records in the divine dragon transformation, the ancient god Kuan Breeders were already extinct. Little did he expect to meet one in person. The ancient god Kuan Breeder, as the name suggests, was a breeder of Kuns. Hence, these so-called Kuan Breeders were also the owners of Kuns, giant monsters of the galaxy. whereas the Kuin, also known as Kuin Garuda, were creatures whose existence was almost on par with that of a divine dragon. It was a fish in the sea, but a bird on land and in the air. The physical size of a Kuin could stretch up to thousands of kilometers, making it one of the largest creatures to exist under the sky. As a bird, the combat abilities of a Kuin were more powerful than that of a golden-winged Saparnin, making it a rare hegemon both on land and underwater. A creature as domineering as the Kuin, which managed to attain status as a pinnacle, had achieved this due to neither its bloodline nor physical constitution. Its existence was, in fact, thanks to the breeding efforts of one particular clan. That is, the ancient god clan, otherwise known as the ancient god Kuin breeders. These ancient god Kuin breeders reared Kuns by capturing existences of the top bloodlines with the best physical constitutions within the galaxy and feeding them to the Kuns thereafter. Amongst the main targets of these ancient god Kuin breeders were weaker and smaller divine dragons, which were hunted and killed. Based on records in the divine dragon transformation, these ancient god Kuin breeders were annihilated after they offended many top-class clans and sects for having killed their descendants. Their existence was a perverse one which was feared and scorned by all. Wang Xian's face contorted along with his swirling emotions as he looked at the corpse of the ancient god Kuin breeder. He reverted to his human form before walking slowly over to the corpse. With a body size stretching up to 3 meters, this ancient god Kuin breeder was not a huge one. Void of any signs of life, the corpse now crumbled in decay, as though it had been dead for thousands of years. As Wang Xian looked at the corpse, he began to show signs of hesitation. This corpse must not be left on its own. These ancient god Kuin breeders are a top-class existence which even Wang Xian was unable to contain. He did not know if it would bode well or if it would mean evil should this ancient god Kuin breeder manage to regain consciousness. It would be too late for regrets for him should this fellow kill him and feed him to the Kuns, upon seeing that he was a purebred divine dragon. Destroy! Wang Xian decided without the slightest hesitation. As he spoke, a dragon ball appeared in his hand, which he then placed gently on top of the corpse. The corpse was soon engulfed in flames. However, Wang Xian was startled with a burdened look. Despite the flames raging from the dragon ball, the corpse of the ancient god Kuin breeder did not seem the least bit affected. Flames from a level 10 Dragon Ball had not done the least bit of damage to this corpse. To think a corpse which has been long dead can still be this menacing! Wang Xian shrieked in astonishment. With a sudden thought, he placed his arm on the area where the heart of the corpse lay beneath. It's the bloodline. His body is still flowing with remnants of their clan's bloodline. I need to obtain it so that this ancient god Kuin breeder can never come back to life. Wang Xian analyzed. Zoom! Through Wang Xian's telepathic sensing, he detected the scarlet fluid the size of fingernails, which was located in the heart of the corpse.